Ding, 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 ding.
I'm finished entering stuff.
It popped up. And you guys are always welcome to go over there and hang out with her if you want to too. It like everybody keeps saying it smells better over there. Although Stormy's been coming in here and vacuuming and lighting candles from my understanding to try to make it smell better. So who knows? We'll see. we'll see. Trying to keep up with the bear side of things. It is what it is. I don't know. Anyway, please, if nothing else, just hop over, hit the like button, hang out with her. We're all here together. So doesn't matter where you sit. She might have nicer furniture for all I know. Who knows?
You never know.
Speaking of peeps, who's in here right now? Let's see. Looks like CLK. Miss Kim's back in the house. Hello. Stormy's in the house. You're doing great, Stormy. No worries. SRBBBBB. Hello. Jesus, we had SRB through the whole weekend, which does not ever happen. And the whole week. Like usually we lose her for Sundays at the very least. She was here yesterday and Saturday. So that was grateful to have that. We got Cassie in the house. Hello, Miss Cassie. Who else do we have here? Miss Trish Crow, welcome back to you. Great to see you today. Peaky X in the house. Welcome back to you. Great to see you. Miss Paula, always a pleasure to see you. Good morning, dear. Good afternoon. Whatever it is for you. Hope it's great. Miss Brandy B, the OG. Good to see you here. Great to have you. Hope you're doing well. Mikey's in the house. What's happening with the last 24? Good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us today. You do amazing, SRB. No worries there. Miss Kim Marin. Oh my God. Here she is, guys. Wearing that awesome t-shirt. 29 months and going. Miss Kim has been here for a long time. Miss Kim, Mama Bear, Miss Wisdom, Molly, Mikey. Let me get this right. Who else was it there, Bear? I always forget. Tomboy. There's a big couple handful. All came in here at one time together. Most amazing people. I got super lucky, and these people are all still here. And look. So thank you, Kim. Again, happy Dagoversary. 30 months we're going on here. That's amazing to me. And thank you so much for supporting this channel, for supporting myself, and just being part of this family. We adore you and appreciate you so very much. And I love your shirt. I do. I like that color too. So congrats. And thank you, SRB. Guys, please make sure to hit the like button over here too. Hit the subscribe button if you have not by some chance. And hit the notification bell so you don't miss nothing. We got 21 peeps in the house with 12 likes. What is y'all doing? Come on now. Make it right. Make it match. Also, I wanted to say thank you again to everyone in this community. Everyone. Guys, we have broke again. We hit 10K one time over the summer, okay? And it was there for a while, and then it just all fell off, which, okay. It is what it is. And I wanted to make sure that I do this organically, okay? I want it to be the real deal thing. I want everybody to come in here that comes in here to subscribe to be happy that they're here and they subscribed because they wanted to subscribe, not just a quick look over this and that. And we're at 10,028 again as of today. And everything in this channel has been doing nothing but positive things, guys. And I have to thank you all so very much. We have created through this channel, I'm going to say to start, because everybody came out of here, I'm going to say Mama Bear has an amazing channel. The last 24, Mikey has an amazing channel. Wisdom Speaks has an amazing channel. Molly has an amazing channel. There's so many amazing people in this. We have now we have CLK Creations that has become part of the family. Miss Kim has an amazing channel. So there are some amazing people in this community that do amazing things. And I want to thank you all for being who you are, for supporting us, for helping me to become who I am here and this channel, and for being part of this family. That's really all. Just being you. That's what matters to me. So thank you all. Please know how much I absolutely adore all of you. And I'm beyond grateful for you all. So thank you, every one of you. And I feel like I forgot somebody's channel in here. I don't think I did, but Mikey and Wisdom, Molly, and you. That's it, right? It's part of the core community. Is there anybody else I forgot? If I did, it's not because I hadn't meant to. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think I did. I don't think I did. Nope, I got him. I'm looking. Oh, SRBBBBB is definitely not a sir. She wasn't calling you one. She's calling me one. I get it. FG 16333. Glad to see you're all revisiting this one. Also praying for your friend. She has been found. I took it down off my page. I don't know if anybody else did, but Miss Barbara Hall has been found safe and sound. Thank God. Thank you though, FG. I appreciate that very much. God bless. Yeah, she is very, very important to all of us, and she's good. I'm glad, and I appreciate all the support everybody was giving us to help put that out, so on and so forth. Barbara's okay. I am grateful. That's all matters to me. Hey, Mr. Ghost. He's so cute.
Yep.
He's like, "Where's the other one, Mom? What are you doing? Give me more."
No, he accidentally scooted the treat away.
He's adorable. He really is. He's like a little kid.
Is.
He's a big baby.
He
Big
is.
baby. Thank you, Miss Stormy. Yes, please make sure to jump over and subscribe to our Mama Bears channel, please, and thank you.
You show him high five? No? You gonna be shy?
Oh my goodness.
Give me a high five. Come here. Look.
He's cute.
Come here. Come here. Okay. Do high five. High five. Oh, he smacked my arm. He's a little off balance.
He said, "It's in that hand. Give it to me that way."
Yeah.
He's cute. Oh, that's awesome. You guys been training him to do stuff?
A good boy, aren't you?
He is. He is. As much as you were not, I don't want to say you didn't want him, but you weren't looking at getting him on purpose. I think he's been good for you guys inside, especially you in some ways.
He has.
He's a good dog. Speaking of which, where's Mr. Kitty? I haven't seen him in a long time.
He's hiding somewhere. Him and Ghost don't get along so well.
I figured. It's okay.
Because Bean's fat and lazy, and
Ghost is hyper and crazy.
Play. Mm-hmm.
Of course, yes, yeah. He's adorable. I love him. Love his little face. He reminds me of a little baby. He's cute. I wish mine were like that. They're Humper and the dust mop. All the dust mop wants to do is eat and lay around and scratch. And Humper wants to hump, and he tries to pee on everything, and I have to constantly stop him because he was here before dust mop was.
Yeah.
When I spoke to because I've caught him multiple times, he doesn't even actually do it though. He'll lift his leg like he's going to, but he doesn't do anything. And the vet said it's because he's remarking his territory in his mind. He thinks
I've heard that.
Yeah, because the other dog. And it's so strange. A couple of times I've caught him, yes. And I've had to clean up his messes and this and that. But he knows he's not supposed to do it because he'll stop and look at me. And when I turn and look at him, he puts his leg back down and walks away. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So, but it's because of the dust mop that he does it. Yes, Humper and the dust mop. That's what I call them both. Because Humper, if you guys watch in the background, at any given moment, you'll be able to see him humping the dust mop space because that's all he does. It's nonstop. And it's all about superiority and territorial shit. It's stupid, but whatever. Anyway, let's see. It is great to have you, Kim. 27 peeps in the house. That's awesome. What happened to where I was? Where did I go? Hold on here. Oh, there we are. 12 likes. Come on, y'all. We can do better.
There's one for you.
Please. Where? Hello, Miss Tippy. Tippy Hadron Collider. Welcome back.
I wasn't going to tip that one. I was going to be like, hey, Tippy.
Hey, Tippy. Tippy Hadron Collider. I think I said it right. One of our new meatballs in the house. Good to see you today. Aurora. Welcome back to you. Great to see you guys. So, how many of you guys have heard of the Springfield 3? Stitches is in the house. Hello, hello, hello.
Sounds familiar.
It's out of Springfield, Missouri. It's an old one. Working and lurking. I hope I do have a good show. Thank you, Tippy. Don't work too hard. It is quite interesting, Miss Kim. I agree. Um, you have not heard of the 3. Okay. SRB got her hand up. I have. A lot of people do, Stormy. A lot of people do. Tell you what, there's a lot of crap that comes out of Missouri. This is another one. Yep, I agree. I agree that a lot of people feel that way too. By the way, I want to thank everybody for being here last night and joining us for the show last night. Turned out to be a really good show. Mark Schumann, good to see you. Yeah, there's quite a few podcasts have done it. I like this case because it's just so interesting to me. I don't like it, but you know what I mean. Um, and I thought it'd be a good one for us to review today. Barbara, I don't know what happened, Kim. She went missing for a couple days based on communication with people that she didn't have. And I don't know what actually went down. All I know is that she's okay. That's what matters to me. Other than that, I guess I don't need to know it. She's all right, then we're all right. So that's all I can say. But she just a couple days, around the 27th, she disappeared and nobody had seen her until yesterday evening. But the communities all came together as we do when one, especially for one of our own. And I think Mom spoke to her at some point, Mind of Monsters, and then Doodle. Doodle was out looking for her. I know that. And then everything came together and she was found safe and sound. So that's all that matters to me. I'm happy. And I was going to try to run a show last night while she was missing. And I don't think it was going to work. I really don't, because I was so distracted. I couldn't focus on anything. I kept going back to that and thinking about that. And I was trying to think. And then just right when I went to start, they said, we found her. She's good. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. Okay. Everything went into play. So it was good. Dagburn, Johnny Gobble's dead. Floozy Mama. Hello. And welcome back. God, I love that you come in here just so I can say that. I know that's so ridiculous, but it's truth. We appreciate you. I hope you guys are having a good start to your week. It is Monday. It's caca. I know. But we're here together, so that's what matters. Miss Paula, I've heard some of it. It's wonderful to see you here today. 33 peeps in the house, 18 likes. We're still not there. You guys don't want to like it. They don't want to like me, Bear. They don't want to like me. Well, at least make sure you hit the like button for her, please, and thank you, if you will.
Or, hit it twice for him. Twice.
Maybe I need to shave my head bald. Maybe that'll make it happen. What do you think?
No.
I could shave my head bald and my eyebrows and all my facial hair off, guys. Will you hit the like button for me then? And yes, thank you. Please don't forget to leave a little DNA on the like button on your way in, if you will. Just a little. Just a speck. What if I dye my hair blue? Would that change it?
No.
Oh, Ghost didn't like that. He said, nope. Doing that there. Don't be doing that. I could always re-dye it. I used to have this hairdo that it was kind of like spiky all over the place when I was playing in the band, and it looked like fire. My wife dyed it, and it looked like fire coming out the top of my head. It was like 3 different colors. It was crazy. I'm a little too old, I think, for that now, but it's one of them things. Yep, Ghost said no. He said, don't do it, Dago. Don't. We don't like that, so I'm not doing it. As soon as I said that was hilarious. He responded.
No.
What are you doing, Ghost? He can't hear me. He's so cute. His little tail's wagging, everything. His eyes, the way he looks, he's like, You know what this means, Mom.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
He's notorious for that.
Yes, he is. I've heard it a couple times. So we know some of us know the Springfield 3, some of us don't. Anything new before we get started that you want to throw out or need to throw out, Bear?
I don't think so.
No, 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 no. All right. Let's see. Let me track something else. Okay, nothing in there. What the hell? Okay. Yes, Rachel Morin's killer goes to court this week. That's true. Well, thank you, Dagburn. I appreciate that. I do very much. It means a lot, actually. I don't know what it means completely, but I appreciate it. It's a good thing. I know I'm a little strange. I'm a bit of a dork, but that's okay. I'll be that way. It is March 31st. I thought it was. Oh my God, I guess I was wrong. Huh. Swear to God, these last few days of the month have gone by so slow.
Mm.
It's a little weird. All right, let's get this moving. Let me see here. Don't worry, you guys. I'm working on getting a system figured out so that I can continue showing the missing posters before the shows we do. I haven't stopped doing it. I just haven't had the ability to put it together the way I want to, so I can do it to bring them in. So it's coming back soon. That's a promise because I want to do it. I didn't just quit. Hold on here. Come on, load. Hang on. Mm-hmm. I know where you're at with that. 1 minute. I'm gonna get this rolling.
Friends and family of 19-year-old Suzanne Streeter and 18-year-old Stacy McCall say it's not like them to just leave and not tell anyone where they're going.
She calls and lets me know where she's going to be. She's never missed work. She's a very conscientious young woman.
We're questioning everybody at this time, friends, relatives, anyone that has any information, anyone that may have seen them last, neighbors. We've done neighborhood canvas. We're just checking every lead we can at this time.
The last time anyone saw Susan Streeter or Stacy McCall was over the weekend at this house in Battlefield. The girls had gathered here with some friends after graduating from Kickapoo High School on Saturday. They left here early Sunday morning.
They said they were going to the other girl's house and they were going to be spending the night there, and they'd call me in the morning so we could go to Whitewater. And they never called me in the morning, so I called them, and I called and I got no answer. So I went over there and they weren't there.
This is Suzanne Streeter's mom, Cheryl Lovett. She's also missing. Last seen at her daughter's graduation ceremony at Hammond Student Center on Saturday. She lived in this house on East Delmar in Springfield. That's where police found the three missing women's cars. Authorities say there was no sign of a struggle. In fact, the front door was unlocked. The TV was on. Their clothes were still there. Their purses and personal items untouched.
Her jewelry and things were left in her purse. Her makeup is there. An 18-year-old girl that's very proud about the way she looks wears her makeup and looks nice, and she doesn't go out just wearing a t-shirt and her underpants.
Springfield police have notified law enforcement agencies in the surrounding area and in neighboring states, hoping someone will have an idea of what happened to these 3 women over the weekend. In Springfield, Missouri, I'm Marty Schussler for NBC News. In Springfield, Missouri, I'm Marty Schussler reporting.
All right, guys, one moment here. One moment here. Come on, computer, do what you're supposed to do. Give me a second.
Police say they have made significant progress since the 3 women turned up missing. They've sifted through items inside the East Del Mar home. Analysts continue looking at everything from fingerprints to financial records in the hunt for clues. They've put together background reports on Stacy McCall and Susie Streeter. 2 detectives.
So this is about 3 women that are missing, not 3 boys.
Wife. But many of the most dramatic leads mentioned
Yes, ma'am.
publicly by police so far
Okay.
have been based on thin
Stormy thought it was about 3
information.
boys.
A clerk at this Southside convenience store says he saw Cheryl Levitt early on the.
No. I think somebody must have misconstrued the West Memphis 3 with the Springfield 3. This is 3 missing women, young women. This is not the West Memphis 3. That's why I was saying, does everybody know this case? This is out of Missouri. So, sorry.
A couple of people got them.
I didn't mean to confuse anybody. Hey, Jelly Bean, good to see you. Sorry about that.
The morning the 3 women disappeared, looking for her daughter and 2 friends. Police have been unable to confirm that report, though. Did Levitt make a call a short time later from this nearby store? Police can't confirm that either, but are trying to obtain records from payphones in the area. Were the 3 women in this restaurant early on that morning? A waitress says she served them, but no one else has come forward to substantiate that.
I'll classify the individual photographed here as a suspect.
Police have made much of identifying this composite sketch. A woman saw the transient-looking man in the neighborhood near the Levitt home around the time the women disappeared. But no one else has confirmed those sightings, and no identification has been made. Police are also trying to track down a brown, older model Dodge van like this one. It was reportedly seen in the area early on the morning the women disappeared, but again, by only one person, and the report is so far unsubstantiated.
Okay, that was a nice ending to that. What the hell? Hold on. Yeah, there's a few of these cases that if you're not careful, you could, the Kansas City 3, the West Memphis 3, and the Springfield 3. No, it was painted to look that way, Chris. That's why I was looking at it like that. Like, what the hell? But anyway, this is the Springfield 3. This is out of Springfield, Missouri. 3 women, young women that went missing. This is an older case too, guys. So give me 1 minute. I'm going to get the documentary up or rolling for you guys, and we can get moving with it. I always like to start off with a couple news breaks on it. So 1 moment here. If my computer will start to work for me. It's only in the morning when I do these things. This does this. Drives me nuts. Come on, downloads. All right. Now,
Because you wear it out all night long. Staying
mean-
up till 1:30, 2 o'clock.
sometimes. It's supposed to do all its update. I still have to get in here and try to clean more out, I guess. Okay. There we go. I think it's going to work for me. One moment. Okay. We're going to work now. Maybe. Yep. Okay. Good deal. And as always, guys, please make sure that you let me know if the audio is okay or not.
McCall and 19-year-old Suzanne Elizabeth Streeter. Everyone.
I hate when it starts like that. Always jumps ahead of me.
High school event was attended by 18-year-old Stacy Kathleen McCall and 19-year-old Suzanne Elizabeth Streeter. Everyone was happy, smiling, taking photos, and chatting about the future. They were posing for countless shots with relatives and schoolmates, and they were getting tired of smiling after a while. But Stacy was still excited to meet with the senior students that evening. There were numerous graduation parties in the area that night, and the two girls decided to visit a few to celebrate their latest achievement. The ceremony ended at 6 p.m., and after receiving their diplomas, they left the campus and went home separately to change and prepare for the night. At 7:30 p.m.
Yeah, that was something that had been talked about at one point in time, Mark. So yes. Oh, hey, Peggy's here. I think. Or she's on your side. Okay, welcome, Peggy. Good to see you. So yeah, that was a theory at one point, Mark. I'm not 100% sure what they did with that, but I remember reading it. So yes. Footage was again provided via Random Nights, and I thank them. The link is in the chat if anybody would like to check them out, please and thank you. You're welcome to. There's the link, and on we go.
p.m., Nigel Kenny, one of Susie's friends, dropped off a white graduation cake for her at 1717 East Delmar Street in Springfield, and she spent the early part of the evening having a take-home pizza with her mother, 47-year-old Cheryl Elizabeth Levitt. They had a special bond, thus the daughter even pondered canceling the plans to spend time with her mother, the only relative she had with her at the ceremony. Stacy was also at home for a short time, but the McCalls decided the celebration could wait one more day. Her graduation present was a bouncy white Cocker Spaniel puppy named Bubba, who would wait for her to return home the next day. The friends gathered at Janelle Kirby's house on 4881 South Butterfield Place in Battlefield, near West Coach Drive, about 10.7 miles southwest of Streeter's residence. Susie reached there at 8:15 p.m. and Stacy at 8:30 p.m., and they went to a nearby party at 5002 Coach Drive hosted by Brian Joy, another schoolmate. The girls initially planned to stay at a hotel in Branson overnight, about 50 miles south of Springfield, and then visit the Whitewater amusement park with a larger group in the morning. However, 2 hours later, at 10:30 p.m., Stacy phoned her mother, Janice McCall, and informed her that she and Susie decided to spend the night at Janelle's home in Battlefield and wouldn't drive to Branson because they would probably party late, and she also promised to call in the morning before leaving. It was quite a relief for Janice and Stu McCall, who had feared a car accident would happen to them, because on the night of their own graduation decades earlier, 2 of their friends were killed in a traffic accident. Sometime before 1 a.m., the teens went to another party at 1535 East Hanover Street in Springfield, 8.2 miles east of Kirby's house, where Michelle Elder, a friend of McCall, hosted graduates. They left their cars at Janelle's home and rode with others. They arrived around 1:30 a.m., but left 20 minutes later because the police had broken up the party due to a neighbor's report. By then, Susie complained of a growing stomachache. She had already felt it when she left home and told the group it was most likely from the pizza. Shortly before 2 a.m., they returned to Brian Joy's residence in Battlefield. Some sources state the boy had earlier offered them to spend the night at his place, but allegedly recanted it. However, it wouldn't make much sense because the girls had already planned to stay at the Kirby residence, and Stacy even told her mother about it. Janelle's mother, Kathy, had even laid out a pallet on the living room floor for them, while her daughter was about to sleep on the couch. But because the house was overcrowded with out-of-town relatives from Kansas, Streeter and McCall chose to drive back to the former's home, where she lived with only her mother. Suzanne was also excited to show Stacy her new king-size waterbed, a graduation gift from Cheryl, so they left Battlefield in separate vehicles. The girls arrived at East Delmar Street sometime around 2:15 a.m., and that's when the real mystery began, because something truly sinister happened between 2:30 and 8 a.m. We know that a friend called Cheryl at 11:15 p.m. while she was varnishing a chair and painting a drawer, and she made no indication that anything was wrong. Since the early hours of June 7th, the three Springfield women have shown no signs of life, and surprisingly, the neighbors did not see any suspicious activity near Cheryl's home during the overnight hours. It seemed like they had vanished into thin air. The classmates planned to speak with Janelle at 8 a.m. to arrange their meeting time for Branson, but her calls remained unanswered. Janelle and Nagiel Holderby, Susie's best friend, tried multiple times ringing up the home, but with no different outcome. Kirby left a message nonetheless, and on their way to the water park, she and her boyfriend, Mike Henson, stopped by East Delmar Street to see if everything was okay. It wasn't. They arrived at around 9 a.m., and they found each of the women's cars, Cheryl's blue Mitsubishi Eclipse, Susie's red Ford Escort with the personalized license plate Sweeter, and Stacy's red Toyota Corolla parked outside on the Circle Drive, implying that they were probably home. They saw a shattered glass lampshade on the porch, though the light bulb was untouched and burning. Unfortunately, the first major mistake was made at this point, because the teenage couple swept the broken glass off the porch and threw it in a dumpster across the street. Henson later said they did it because they knew Cheryl wouldn't like it, and Janelle stepped out of their car barefooted. Springfield police later determined that they might have destroyed potential evidence. First they knocked, but no answer. They found the door unlocked, so they slowly turned the doorknob and entered the house, but found no one inside. All the trio's belongings were there, along with Susie's dog, a Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon, who appeared anxious and immediately jumped into the girl's arms. Janelle walked around the backyard, thinking her friends might be sunbathing. According to Springfield Branson National Airport's databases, on June 7th, the weather was pleasant, with a peak temperature of 79 degrees Fahrenheit, or 26.1 degrees Celsius at 5 p.m. During their visit at 9 a.m., it was 67 degrees Fahrenheit, or 19.4 degrees Celsius. An 8-mile-per-hour gentle northeast breeze was blowing outside, and the sky was mostly cloudy the whole day. They checked everything, but nothing seemed amiss. Susie's bed covers were pulled back, but nothing unusual for a teenager. As they were leaving the house, the phone started ringing. Kirby answered, and an unidentified male made sexual innuendos. The girl hung up immediately, but the phone rang again, and again a male voice told various obscene things, seasoned with a lot of F-words. Janelle and Mike then went to a friend's house to see if Susie and Stacy had stopped by before meeting for the trip to Branson, but their friend Shane hadn't seen the girls. They returned to East Delmar Street one more time, but no miracle happened. They even checked a neighborhood shop to see if they walked there for food, but again, they found nothing. The couple eventually left Streeter's house and decided to visit Springfield's Hydroslide Water Park instead of the initially planned White Water Park in Branson. Time passed, but the three women gave no signs of life. It was a Sunday, so it wasn't that unusual, but Stacy's mother, Janice, grew concerned after her daughter did not answer the phone. The early 90s were the cradle of the internet, and cell phones weren't nearly as common as today, but still, she promised her mother she'd check in. At 10:30 a.m., Janice phoned the Kirby residence and learned from Janelle's sister that the schoolmates had not stayed there for the night, which surprised Mrs. McCall even more. Janice had acquaintances who knew Whitewater employees, and she became even more panicked after they confirmed that Susie and Stacy had not been seen there. Not entirely sure when, but sometime during the afternoon on June 7th, the mother also went to Streeter's house to check on the trio. She returned from a family gathering at Lake Springfield with one of his elder daughters, and when she entered the house, Cinnamon came barreling towards her. The dog was in there just going crazy, just yipping and crying, Janice told True Crime News later. She found their purses with the IDs inside on the floor, next to the stairs leading into Susie's sunken bedroom, where the girl's bikini for the next day's water park was laid out. Levitt's wallet still contained a cash deposit of over $900 from her work. In the bedroom, Stacy's flowered shorts were neatly folded with some jewelry stuffed into the pockets, and she placed them on her sandals next to Streeter's waterbed. Those were the only clothes she had with her. The situation was extremely worrying, and it wasn't over yet. Janice discovered more jewelry on the wash basin and recently used damp clothes tossed in the hamper, indicating that the girls washed off their makeup. The graduation cake with "Congrats Suze" written on it was still in the fridge untouched, and she found the car and house keys as well, which also suggested the two graduates had arrived at Delmar Street and were about to go to bed. Another puzzling finding was Susie and Cheryl's cigarettes and lighters, because mother and daughter were both chain smokers. They took tobacco with them everywhere, and friends recalled Cheryl smoking a cigarette as one of the first things she did when she woke up. If they had gone somewhere together, leaving such things behind feels quite unrealistic, given their smoking habits. In the girls' room, there was an unfinished can of Coke next to the cigarette, and the television was showing snow, suggesting they might have watched a movie on VHS but never turned it off after it was finished. Or they weren't in the house by then. However, some sources state that the 19-year-old frequently turned on the device when sleeping. The scene indicated the girls had safely returned home, finished using the bathroom, and probably started watching something on television. The drink and cigarette also suggest that Susie wasn't planning to go to the porch for another smoke. But why were the purses on the floor? Janice initially didn't want to call the police because she expected the girls to walk in any minute. And during the afternoon, 18 friends and family members came to the house asking about the trio's whereabouts. While patiently waiting for their return, visitors cleaned up the house, emptied ashtrays, washed the dishes, repaired a weirdly bent window blind, and called acquaintances from Cheryl's phone book. It was already getting darker outside, and nearly a day had passed since they were last seen when Janice finally decided to call the police from the home telephone. At 8:48 p.m., she reported them missing to Officer Rick Bookout, who ran the overnight shift. After placing the call, while checking the answering machine, she listened to a sexually explicit message, but unfortunately, it was accidentally erased by the careless hand of a visitor. When the 3-year veteran Officer Bookout arrived, he could still smell the varnish Cheryl had used. By then, Janelle and Mike had returned from Hydroslide. The policeman first talked to the McCall parents, who brought him up to speed. They then walked through the house, and soon Officer Brian Galt was also called to the scene. They concluded that it was a missing persons case and foul play was suspected. However, police later stated that by tidying up, the worrying visitors ultimately corrupted the scene to such an extent that they most likely destroyed many valuable pieces of evidence.
And that's a big thing. Like I get what they were doing. They weren't even thinking at the point that it was something nefarious, obviously. Like, you wouldn't think that at first. So they cleaned the house to do something nice and to keep them busy. Well, unfortunately, they probably destroyed all, if any, evidence there was as far as, what could have happened. So not to mention the light that was busted, the glass that was cleaned up and thrown away, all of this. It probably completely destroyed the crime scene that was probably right there inside the house, in my opinion. So yeah, it's really that right there is probably what has delayed most everything in this case, in my opinion.
Officer Bookout and Galt interviewed everyone in the house and even asked Janice for Stacy's dental records, which she thought was because they believed the girls could be dead and identification would be necessary soon. Except for the shattered porch light, investigators found no evidence of struggle, forced entry, or other indication of a crime. Levitt's bed appeared to be slept in, and all personal belongings, including purses, money, cars, keys, cigarettes, and the family dog Cinnamon, were left behind. The mother had a doctor's appointment scheduled for Monday. McCall was supposed to work that day as well, while Streeter was also expected to work on Tuesday at 4 p.m. None of the women arrived. The Springfield trio vanished without a trace, and no one has seen them since. The missing persons report number 9240169 was filed at 2:50 a.m. on June 8th. Upon leaving, Officer Bookout left a small blue note on the door with a handwritten message. When you get in, please call 864-1810 and cancel the missing persons report. "1992 was a remarkable year in the United States in many ways. George H.W. Bush and Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton were running for the presidency. Notorious mob boss John Gotti was convicted of murdering rival mafioso Paul Castellano, and The Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture at the 64th Academy Awards. End of the Road by Boyz II Men was the #1 hit song of the year. Metallica was climbing the charts, and hoop earrings became trendy among girls. However, 1992 was also the year when one of the most famous true crime mysteries occurred, the case of the Springfield Three. The entire disappearance is almost as perplexing as the vanishing of the Sodder children in 1945 when 5 siblings went missing in one night after a house fire. Springfield was a city of 140,000 in 1992 and is now the state's 3rd most populous city. It is known by several nicknames, including Queen City of the Ozarks and the birthplace of Route 66. Springfield is generally considered a good place to live for families because of its mainly friendly community and high standard of living. Yet crime rates are awful, according to recent FBI statistics. In 2022, Springfield's crime rates were 172.2% higher than the national average, and the 2 main categories were violent crime and property crime. There were a total of 2,408 violent crimes in the city, 1,418 per 100,000 people, which is 283.4% higher than the national average, and a total of 8,336 property crimes, 4,909 per 100,000 residents, which was 151.2% higher than the average, all in 1 year. To put the period in perspective, the FBI's Uniform Crime Report shows that in 1992, Missouri had 38,000 violent crimes, including 547 murders, and 226,000 property crimes, including 57,000 burglaries. So we can say that even back then, there was room for improvement. Susie worked for a few months at a Springfield health club, and in February 1992, she started working at a local movie theater and planned to enroll in a cosmetology school in the fall of that year. She wanted to follow in her mother's footsteps, who was a hairdresser at New Attitudes Hair Salon at 210 West Sunshine Street in the middle of the city. Cheryl was considered a model employee who had 250 clients and was a very cautious and precise person. She was a single mother to Bart and Suzanne and divorced twice. She was close with her daughter, who had never lived with her father and rarely spoke about him or her stepfather. Susie's father was Cheryl's first husband, Brent Streeter, whom she married in 1964 and divorced in 1973, shortly after the girl was born. She married Don Levitt in 1980, and they relocated to Springfield together. They separated in 1989, after which the man returned to Seattle and remarried. I found sources claiming that Don Levitt accumulated some debts, and his creditors pressured Cheryl to pay even after their divorce. She hired an attorney to locate him, but without success. The mother grew up in Seattle, Washington, and they moved to Springfield when Susie was just 7. They bought the East Delmar Street house in a safer part of the city in April 1992, just 2 months before the vanishing. She purchased the home on a contract arrangement and was fixing it up. For instance, She installed deadbolt locks on the doors. People described Cheryl as a private person who enjoyed decorating her new home. Even during the last call, she was varnishing a chair, and after the ceremony, she went home to hang a wallpaper border. Despite Cheryl's close bond with Susie, her relationship with her son was sometimes turbulent, but we will get to that soon. At the time of her disappearance, Stacy McCall was employed as a secretary and receptionist at the Springfield Gymnastics Center Health Club and planned to attend Southwest Missouri State University in the fall of 1992. She and Janelle were best friends since they were toddlers, as they lived near each other. And Janelle's mother, Kathy, watched Stacy when she was 3 or 4. They were both accepted to the university and intended to room together and pledged to the Alpha Chi Omega sorority. Stacy lived with her parents, Janice and Stu McCall. She loved fashion and modeled wedding gowns for the Total Bride in the Brentwood Center, a business owned by family friends. Both girls dated occasionally, but neither had a boyfriend at the time, and neither of them had any reason to leave everything behind, as they had plans to study and build a career. Suzanne was born on March 9th, 1973. She was 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 102 pounds at the time of her vanishing. She had shoulder-length bleached blonde hair and brown eyes, and she could be distinguished by a scar on her upper right forearm and a small tumor on the left corner of her mouth. She had large-sized teeth with no previous dental work, and both of her ears were pierced, but the left ear was pierced twice. She may have been dyslexic. Friends described her as an outgoing, fun person who was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, jeans, and pink shoes. She had a close but sometimes troubled relationship with Cheryl. Susie even moved out of her mother's home twice. Friends said, like most teenagers, Susie also wanted more independence. In the summer of 1991, for example, she lived for 3 months with her boyfriend, Mike Kovach. In September, however, she returned and petitioned Greene County Circuit Court for a restraining order against him, alleging that he had threatened and harassed her and slashed her tires, which he denied. In the spring of 1992, Susie again moved out of East Delmar Street to live with her brother, but she returned about 2 weeks later after an argument over his partying habits. She liked to dress in hip fashion, including torn jeans and wild hats. Friends recalled that any time the 19-year-old arrived home, she always went into her mother's room to check in and tell her she was home safe. Stacy McCall was born on April 23, 1974. She was 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighed 120 pounds. She had long, dark blonde hair and blue eyes. Stacy suffered from migraine headaches and required medication to relieve the pain, but left her prescription in her handbag at Levitt's house. She had a tanned complexion, freckles adorned her face, and the sun had lightened the ends of her
Welcome,
hair.
Taylor.
Stacy's ears were also pierced, and she had an off-center cleft in her chin and birthmarks on her chin near her lip and on her right arm. She last wore a yellow shirt, had a 14-karat gold necklace, a gold ring with her initials, and a small diamond ring. The girls had been friends since grade school, but with time, they went with different friend groups. Susie was described as the popular girl in school, while Stacy hung out with the goofy crowd. Her parents said Stacy was also popular in Kickapoo and had good grades but did not participate in many school activities. Susie was added to Stacy and Janelle's circle in 2nd grade when she was held back, and that's why she is older. Once the McCalls moved out of state when Stacy was 11, the three separated for a few years. When she returned, everything changed, as Janelle described later. Instead of 3, it was typically 2. Sometimes Janelle and Stacy, sometimes Janelle and Susie, but Janelle was the glue for the 3. However, a few months before the graduation, they restored their childhood friendship. Cheryl was born on November 1st, 1944. She was 5 feet tall and 110 pounds. She had bleached blonde hair and brown eyes, just like her daughter, had freckles on her neck and upper chest, her ears pierced, and her maiden name was Williams. The investigators were baffled by the strange and unusual scene. There was no evidence of struggle. It appeared that the 3 women simply walked out of the house. Authorities had little to work with. The lewd message had been deleted, and because of the cleaning, they couldn't collect fingerprints and DNA, even though DNA examinations only became available in Missouri in 1995. However, Nigel Kenny, a coworker and close friend of Susie, noted that she was a creature of habit, almost OCD to some degree, and very particular about parking her vehicle in the same spot in the residence's driveway. Kenny believed that since Streeter's car was not in the carport as usual, someone else might have parked in her spot when she and McCall arrived in the early hours of June 7th. But perhaps she didn't care much about the parking because they came in pitch darkness and exhausted. Or she just wanted to show Stacy where to park because she was following her all the way from Battlefield. And if Susie had parked in the carport with Stacy behind her, Cheryl wouldn't have been able to leave in the morning if she wanted to. Regarding the phone calls, Streeter had been complaining about prank calls since moving in. Janelle Kirby later said that the rude caller gave her a teenish impression, which might imply that some immature boys may have had a crush on the attractive 19-year-old. In addition to her untouched belongings, Cheryl's room had her glasses by her bed and a book turned over, suggesting that someone may have interrupted her while reading. The lights were off in the house, but 2 slats in the window blinds in Susie's room had been separated, as if someone was looking out. What if a strange noise from outside alerted them? For example, the shattering of the porch light globe. Considering that Stacy's only clothes were inside the home, the police believed that she might have left East Delmar Street in just underwear and a shirt because she wouldn't fit in Susie's dresses. It's likely that Levitt and Streeter also left wearing only their bedclothes, suggesting they vanished only after they had already undressed for bed. Springfield police assigned 30 officers to the case, divided into 2 teams. Each team worked 12-hour shifts, and even the department's crisis action team had been called in. On June 9th, the FBI also joined the search and assigned an agent to the case, investigating the disappearance as potentially the work of a serial killer. Police Chief Terry Knowles declared the women almost certainly did not intend to disappear. Retired Springfield Police Captain Tony Glenn said, "The only thing unusual about this house was that 3 women were missing from it. You had this feeling as you looked around that something was missing, that something had to be missing, but there wasn't, just them." The authorities suspected the case was a serial crime and conducted extensive searches in the region, and the highly unusual disappearances quickly gained nationwide attention, prompting reporters to gather around the house. On December 31st, 1992, a man called America's Most Wanted hotline with information about the women's disappearances, but the call was disconnected when the switchboard operator attempted to link up with Springfield detectives. Police stated the caller could have prime knowledge of the abductions and urged the man to contact them, but he never did. However, it must be noted that such calls are common in most cases, with the vast majority being pranks, attention-seeking, or absolutely useless. Police Chief Terry Knowles told the news leader on September 6th that the case had taken a toll on them and left them with little to no social life. "Maybe I'm not able to do certain things I wanted to do, but also, they don't have a daughter that they used to have. So the reality of that puts it in quick perspective, and I'm not so concerned about things I used to do," he added. Detective David Asher said the first 3 months of the investigation felt like a year to them. Since 1992, officials have received over 10,000 tips, followed leads into 21 states, and compiled over 27,000 documents. Friends, relatives, and the community were also involved, with whom police searched forests, canals, sewers, Lake Springfield, and a stretch of the James River with 6 divers, rode horses, and walked through fields of tall grass. But nothing turned up, and not one lead became fruitful. 20,000 posters were placed nationwide on telephone poles, store windows, restaurants, bus stops, truck stops, and many other places, again without success. On June 12th, police called for the public's help in locating 2 stolen vehicles that were taken the night the trio went missing. One was a burgundy Toyota Supra with the Missouri license plate LTS 217 that was stolen from the Battlefield Mall parking lot. The other vehicle was a dark blue 19-foot Dodge van that had been converted into a motorhome. In the early stages of the investigation, police were also looking for a third vehicle taken from one of the classmates of the girls who lived across the McCalls on East Meadowlark Street. The car was stolen from a parking lot on East Sunshine Street and was described as a 1991 red Chevrolet Cavalier, with Missouri license AKF 496. The police weren't sure whether the theft was connected to the disappearances, but they had to investigate regardless. They even dug up anthills at Lake Springfield, which callers thought could be fresh graves. They chased circling buzzards, hoping to find a clue. Lead number 15,416. There are buzzards flying over some silo or something. They would send people, said former Springfield police detective and current Bolivar Police Chief Mark Webb in 2022. They collected, tagged, and stored every possible piece of evidence. For example, a large pair of women's underwear floating in Lake Springfield. It was so big, all 3 women could have fit inside, but still. In 1992, an anonymous caller told Springfield news station KY3 that a letter containing information about their whereabouts was placed inside a newspaper stand. It was found in an envelope and they cut the words out just like in the movies, Webb added. But it was useless once again. Multiple rewards were established. The Boatmen's National Bank of Springfield created a fund where everyone could donate. Crime Stoppers offered $1,000 for information, and local radio stations KGBX and KCMY offered a one-time reward of $10,000. Investigators received a tip that the women were buried in the foundations of the south parking garage at Cox Hospital, 4.3 miles south of the house. In 2007, crime reporter Kathy Baird invited mechanical engineer Rick Norland to scan a corner of the parking garage at South National Avenue and Primrose Street with ground-penetrating radar. Norland discovered 3 anomalies roughly the same size that he said were consistent with a grave site location. 2 of the anomalies were parallel, and the other was perpendicular. However, the police claimed the informant provided no evidence or logical reasoning behind this theory at that time or since then. Skeptics also pointed out that those radars cannot detect in such an environment. Furthermore, SPD highlighted that the construction began more than a year after their disappearances, and that digging up the area and subsequently reconstructing this structure would be extremely costly, and without any reasonable belief that the bodies could be located here. It is illogical to do so, and for those reasons, SPD does not intend to. Investigators have determined this lead to not be credible. Daryl Moore, a former assistant and prosecuting attorney at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office, said the tip came from someone who either claimed to be a psychic or claimed to have a dream or vision about the case. There were numerous suspects in the case, including Bart Streeter, Susie's brother, who was 27 years old when his family disappeared. His relationship with his mother and sibling was often difficult. They weren't even on speaking terms before Cheryl and Susie relocated to Springfield. However, he had a rock-solid alibi for the night, also confirmed by his girlfriend at the time and neighbors, and passed a polygraph test on June 11th. He left the city in the subsequent period, but in 2019 he was arrested on suspicion of public intoxication, disorderly conduct, and attempted false imprisonment in Tennessee. Another suspect was Dustin Rekla, Suzanne's former boyfriend, who stole $30 worth of gold fillings with 2 of his friends from a skull in a Springfield mausoleum a few months before the tragic evening. Susie was disgusted by the desecration and instantly broke up with Rekla. She had given investigators a statement about the break-in and was considered a potential witness against Rekla in court. He was a known drug user with ties to the Galloping Goose Motorcycle Club, a notorious organization often associated with both violence and crime. After the 3 went missing, detectives began digging into the trio's backgrounds and found that Suzanne had several books on Satanism and devil worship, which was an extremely unusual interest for an apparently normal young woman. Perhaps her strange boyfriend had such an influence on her. The 3 men allegedly used Susie's car in the grave robbery, and her possible testimony posed a threat to their freedom. Furthermore, they were known to be together in the area the night the 3 women went missing. However, they also had an alibi, claiming that they were at a concert, and the police pointed out that they were cooperating during the investigation. In December 1992, one of the accomplices, Joseph Riedel, testified about the robbery, and all 3 got probation and community service eventually. Worth noting that it is quite unlikely that such petty robbers would leave valuables and cash behind in a house, and killing one of the key witnesses to a criminal case would just draw more attention to them. The next one is Steve Garrison, a friend of Rekla and a member of the motorcycle gang. In 1993, police arrested him for brutally beating a female student, but in exchange for a plea deal, he offered information regarding the Springfield 3 case. Garrison claimed he overheard someone at a party confessing to the murder. His testimony led investigators to 2 locations where he said they would find the victims and a green van. On August 28, 1993, police searched a farm near Northview, Missouri, as well as another 40 acres of land in Webster County in a different location. One of those was owned by a certain Francis Robb Sr., who was convicted of 2 murders in 1990. Robb pleaded guilty to the 1989 second-degree murder of 34-year-old Mary Susan Thomas and 35-year-old Daniel Davison. The news leader reported that along with Davison's brother John, they were drinking and using drugs with Robb in Robb's mobile home on the night of the murders. After the man killed them, he burned their bodies and scattered their ashes through Webster County. John Davison was slain by another man named Mark Batson, and none of their remains were ever found. A female informant told police the Springfield 3 were also buried by Francis Robb, who died on October 6, 1995. What the authorities discovered is unknown and protected under a gag order, but since no announcement followed the search, we may infer that nothing relating to the trio was found. The main suspect was a man named Robert Craig Cox, a convicted robber, kidnapper, and murderer. He was imprisoned in Texas for aggravated robbery in 1995 after robbing a woman and a 12-year-old child with a gun and attempting to enter a young woman's residence. The court convicted him to life in prison with the chance of parole in 2025. In 1997, 5 years after the disappearances, he told investigative reporter Dennis Graves that he knew the 3 women had been murdered and buried, and claimed their remains would never be recovered. Moreover, his connection to the case deepens because in 1992, he resided in Springfield and previously worked at the same car dealership as Stacy's father. Initially, he had a strong alibi for the morning of June 7th, claiming he was at church with his girlfriend. The woman originally confirmed this, but surprisingly, she later recanted in front of a grand jury, stating that Cox had asked her to say that. He also stated that he was with his parents the night the trio went missing, and they corroborated this. Authorities were uncertain whether Cox was involved in the vanishing or if he was seeking attention by making false statements. He even told detectives and journalists that he would disclose what happened to the 3 women, but only after his mother died. He came to the attention of the police after the parents of 19-year-old Sharon Zellers, who was slain in Orlando, Florida, alerted SPD that Cox was in town. In 1978, the man was a well-trained Army Ranger stationed in Georgia, and he was even named Soldier of the Year. The same year, while he was on vacation with his parents in Florida, the young girl was kidnapped, raped, and killed. Sharon was a full-of-life and happy 19-year-old who wasn't ready for college, but enjoyed working at Walt Disney World's Frontierland Trading Post gift shop. She wasn't supposed to work on December 30th, 1978, but when someone called in sick, she agreed to go in. She left the park at 10 p.m., but never arrived home. 5 days later, authorities discovered her lifeless, badly beaten body stuffed in a dumping company sewer. Cox wasn't charged until 1988, but the jury eventually convicted him. However, the Supreme Court of Florida overturned the verdict in 1990, citing insufficient evidence against him because the DNA samples were questionable. This meant that he evaded death row, but upon his release, California immediately took him into custody to serve his prison sentence for an unrelated 1985 kidnapping and assault of a woman. Later, he moved back to Springfield to live with his parents. Sharon Zeller's parents were certain all along that Cox was responsible for her death. They continued to track him, and when they saw the news about the 3 missing women, they suspected he was behind it. So if the parents hadn't informed Springfield police, they wouldn't have known that a convicted kidnapper and suspected murderer was walking the streets of Springfield. The $42,000 reward for information about the Springfield 3's whereabouts is still in effect today. In 2002, investigators went to a concrete company, again in Webster County, after 2 women reported seeing men driving a green van that resembled the one wanted by authorities. Cadaver dogs were brought in to search 3 locations, and bones were recovered, but the examination revealed that it was far too old to belong to the trio. In April 2003, tips led detectives to a farmland south of Cassville. They excavated vast holes with backhoes, but only discovered 2 pieces of possible evidence: traces of blood and the section of a green vehicle. Perhaps the green van witnesses say they saw back in 1992. Investigators submitted the blood evidence to a specialized lab, but the results were inconclusive. In 2015, Daryl Moore told a journalist that they receive 100 tips a year from various sources. He also added that although it would have been impossible to obtain a court order to dig up the previously mentioned hospital parking lot, they had been able to dig in several locations since the disappearance. One of these was in a cave east of Springfield in Webster County, and another was also on a farm in Berry County, southwest of the city. They tore up the floor of an abandoned building, for example, and dug inside and outside, but unfortunately, nothing turned up. In another instance, a psychic called to say the bodies were in a blanket buried near water, Moore recalled. Numerous sightings focused on unidentified vehicles. Several people reported seeing a brown 2-door Dodge van near the house with rust along the sides and bottom, and no side or rear windows. The van was spotted at the Signal food store on the corner of East Grand and South Glenstone in the early hours of June 7th, around 4:30 a.m., and a similar vehicle was also seen parking near a dentist's office on June 3rd and 4th. Shortly before 7 a.m., residents saw an older avocado green Dodge panel van about 2 miles from Streeter's home. A female caller reported that while sitting on her porch enjoying the sunrise in East Springfield, she overheard a male voice yelling from the backseat to a terrified female driver who matched Susie's description. The witness claimed the green van pulled into the driveway next door, and the man said, "Don't do anything stupid." Unfortunately, she did not report it for several days because she was too scared to come forward. Similar sightings of such a van were reported throughout the city as well. One man told police he was sitting in a grocery store parking lot near Levitt's East Delmar home when he observed a van with a young blonde in the driver's seat as she was waiting on someone in the store. He jotted down the license plate on a newspaper because he thought there was something strange about the vehicle. Unfortunately, he had thrown the newspaper away, and when the police had him hypnotized, he could remember only the first 3 characters. Others stated they heard screeching of tires and screams on the morning of June 7th. This is somewhat in line with the theory the police maintained for the longest time. This suggests that a single individual could have been responsible for the entire disappearance, either by forcing or tricking the 3 women into leaving the house immediately. Authorities believe it could have been such a trick if an unknown person posing as a utility worker warned of a bogus gas leak in the neighborhood to lure them out. This could explain why they left the clothes and all the important personal belongings behind. This theory becomes much more intriguing if we know that in the summer of 1992, Robert Cox worked as a utility locator at SM&P Conduit in South Central Springfield. In 2006, the man sent a letter from prison to the Springfield News Leader, in which he claimed he did such jobs around the city, including the vicinity of the house of Cheryl Levitt. However, in the years before the letter, he also claimed he did not remember having worked there. All our eggs are not in Cox's basket. We're still looking at lots of different people. If tomorrow we had a lead and solved this case, and it wasn't Cox, I wouldn't be surprised. Sergeant Mike Owen, one of the detectives who was working on the case, commented. The other part of the trick theory is that some rumors suggested that neighbors might have seen the dog outside around 3 a.m. It was theorized that the kidnapper or kidnappers may have used the dog as a ruse to gain access to the building. Neighbors and other residents of the area also told officers that they had seen an unknown transient with shoulder-length brown hair and a full beard around the house in the days preceding the events. They described him as white, between the ages of 34 and 38, about 5 feet 9 inches tall, and weighing approximately 145 pounds. The police tried to find him and circulated a sketch in the press, but they were unsuccessful. Then came June 24th, 1992. when a waitress at George's Steakhouse on 339 South Glenstone Avenue, one of Cheryl Levitt's favorite restaurants, claimed she saw the three women in the diner sometime between 2 and 3 a.m. This most likely could have happened after 2 in the morning because the girls left Battlefield at 2 a.m. The waitress claimed the trio arrived and left together, and that Susie appeared giddy, perhaps intoxicated, and her mom tried to calm her down. However, the police haven't confirmed this sighting, and it came more than 2 weeks after the case went viral in the national media. And given that Suzanne complained about a growing stomachache all night, it seems unlikely she consumed much alcohol. Steve Thompson, a convenience store clerk, stated that around 10:30 p.m., Streeter and McCall entered his shop, the Abco A-Mart at 4140 South Fremont Avenue, and bought some items. The 24-year-old man said he remembered Susie because they made good eye contact. He said Stacy arrived in a large light brown or dark gold car, and they left in separate vehicles going in opposite directions. But this was disputed by Janelle and other friends, who said the girls were with them at the parties between 8:30 p.m. and 2 a.m., and they never left. On June 21st, the Springfield News Leader wrote that the same convenience store clerk claimed that on June 7th at 2:15 a.m., Cheryl rushed in to ask if her daughter and two friends had been there. The clerk said no, and the nervous mother left in a 1990 Mitsubishi Eclipse. A customer reportedly said he also saw a woman resembling Cheryl in the shop, as well as a blue Mitsubishi 20 minutes earlier in front of a payphone at the Get and Go convenience store at East Republic Road and Charleston Avenue. Friends of Levitt noted that it would have been quite an uncharacteristic move from the hairdresser, as she wasn't the type of person who would rush out in the middle of the night to look for her daughter without first contacting the home where Susie promised to be. She never called the Kirby residence, but it is unclear if Suzanne ever informed her mother that their plans had changed, and they wouldn't stay in Branson in the first place. The hosts also stated Levitt never investigated the parties the two girls attended. Another noteworthy theory is that whatever happened on East Delmar Street, their abduction might not have occurred by coincidence on the evening of the graduation parties, because literally everyone in the city and surrounding area was aware of the celebrations. As a result, the person responsible for their disappearance could have known that Cheryl would be alone at home that night. Susie had a habit of arriving home late or sleeping somewhere else, so it's possible that the kidnapper saw the girls leaving for the graduation celebration and decided to take action. But given the chaotic nature of the entire night, which was full of random and unforeseen changes, it could also have been a crime of opportunity. It cannot be ruled out that their abductor picked them out on their way home or during the alleged restaurant visit and waited until they arrived home. And if the police's otherwise quite likely theory turns out to be true, then the person could have waited outside until the house went silent. This is where we must discuss one of the most recent suspects, serial killer Larry Dwayne Hall, a fanatic of the American Revolution and the Civil War. He was born on December 11, 1962, in Wabash, Indiana, and was 29 years old at the time of the disappearances. He spent his first few days in a neonatal intensive care unit due to lack of oxygen after his identical twin brother Gary fed on him in the womb in a monochorionic pregnancy. According to Radford University's Department of Psychology's research, Hall was already antisocial at Westward Elementary School and had a very low IQ of 85. Except for English and history, he struggled academically and was frequently bullied at school for being slower than the other kids, as well as for his nightmares, speech impediment, and bedwetting. At the age of 12, Hall began digging graves with his abusive alcoholic father, who worked at Wabash's Falls Cemetery, which desensitized him to the presence of human cadavers and resulted in him stealing valuables from the coffins. When they were 15, the Hall brothers were arrested for smashing the windows of a downtown storefront. In the 1970s and 1980s, he was suspected of committing arson, vandalism, and petty crimes throughout his hometown. His first possible victim was 14-year-old Dean Marie Pyle Peters, who disappeared from Forest Hills Central Middle School in Grand Rapids, Michigan, on February 5, 1981. Larry Hall is believed to be her abductor, and the young girl hasn't been found to this day. Experts suspect Hall could be potentially responsible for the deaths and disappearances of over 50 women across 13 states, including the Springfield Three. Despite his brother's efforts to be a positive influence and travel together across the Midwest to attend battle reenactments, Larry allegedly attempted to kill him several times. Gary later claimed that Larry's Civil War guise was a way to cover his lack of personal hygiene and to act upon his violent urges. He usually dressed as a Union soldier and traveled to the reenactments with a similar van wanted in the Springfield disappearances. The twin brother even asserted that Larry Hall confessed to the trio's murder and said he was stalking one of the girls that night. He allegedly said in an interview that, "All of my victims have the same face, and many of them resembled Stacy McCall." It is believed that the serial killer murdered many of his victims because they reminded him of Gary's ex-wife, and he was angry that his brother devoted his life to this woman and not to him anymore. Coincidentally, on June 6th and 7th, 1992, a battle reenactment was held 1.2 miles west of Pleasant Hope, about 20 miles north of Springfield, as part of Old Settlers' celebration. It is a highly suspicious and scary detail found by the Unmasked True Crime Channel. Pleasant Hope was in the middle of nowhere, and once somebody decided to travel south towards Springfield to grab some food or refuel, they would have to take Highway H and then Route 65, which cuts through the city, right next to Cheryl Levitt's house. The man confessed to dozens of murders throughout the years, but recanted all of them. He was an opportunistic murderer who picked girls randomly, lured them out, and left no traces in their homes. It's possible that through a series of unfortunate events, the two Springfield teenagers somehow crossed his path that night. The previously mentioned Kathy Baird wrote in a 2012 blog post that Hall claims that his twin brother, Gary Wayne Hall, and another man allegedly kidnapped and killed Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy, and then dumped their bodies in the Mark Twain National Forest between 30 and 90 miles of Cheryl's house. Below the post, an anonymous user commented about a terrifying encounter in the woods that happened in 1992. He wrote that he was 15 at the time and was visiting a family member in Missouri. One night, he snuck out with a friend to Camp Winoka, who wanted to show him it was haunted. According to the legend, Camp Winoka, or Winoka Lodge, is an abandoned Girl Scout camp on the shores of Lake Springfield, where a group of Girl Scouts were brutally murdered. However, this is most likely a made-up story, as there is no evidence that such a camp in Springfield where Girl Scouts were murdered ever existed. Nevertheless, the user claims that around 4 in the morning, he and his friend Chuck were deep in the woods when suddenly, a van appeared out of nowhere. 3 men exited the vehicle, along with 3 scared and shirtless women. The men killed one of them almost instantly, and the others screamed madly and were sexually assaulted. The 2 boys remained in the bushes for about 4 hours because the van did not leave until near daylight.
Trigger warning. Content may include sensitive or violent content not suitable for all viewers. Feel free to step out if needed.
Thought the 2 women were still alive when the men put them inside the van before driving away. Once again, this is an anonymous comment and cannot be verified whether it's true or not. Police have reportedly investigated all the new tips, but Larry Hall refused to talk to officers. He is currently serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole in a federal prison in Butner, North Carolina, for the 1993 kidnapping and murder of schoolgirl Jessica Roach, whose body was found in a cornfield. The man certainly fits the picture, and his modus operandi matches the circumstances of the Springfield Three's disappearance. Yet, no evidence links Larry Hall to the case, or suggests that he was in Springfield in the early hours of June 7, 1992. Cheryl Levitt, her daughter Susie Streeter, and her friend Stacy McCall have not been found to this day. The former 2 were declared dead in 1997 after the 5-year legal mark, but Stacy was not, as her family refuses to do so until her body is found. The 2 graduates were last seen alive when they left Janelle's house. Her mother, Kathy Kirby, was already in bed when she heard Susie telling Stacy, "Follow me to my house." "Okay, I will," she responded. Janelle and Kathy then watched them drive away. Janelle later married Mike after their 1995 engagement, but she will never forget that mild summer night when she lost her 2 best friends. Debbie Schwartz, Cheryl's sister, later said, "It doesn't feel like 10 years. The pain feels fresh and new. It's amazing it can feel so new after so long. I'm sure it will be that way until my dying day. In June 1997, a bench was dedicated to the women inside the Victims Memorial Garden in Springfield's Phelps Grove Park, and the McCalls created an organization called One Missing Link to help families whose loved ones are missing. It's hard to be known for something you didn't do as opposed to something you did do, said retired Sergeant David Asher, who led the investigation in the early days. I think of it all the time. I want it to be solved. I want it for Janice and Stu McCall, the streeters, the police department, and I want it for the community. I think they need it, he added. The case went cold in the mid-90s because no new leads were promising, and police announced in 1997 that they couldn't justify the money and manpower to continue working it even on a part-time basis. The other part of the story is that officers said later that sometimes it felt like Police Chief Terry Knowles didn't have confidence in them, micromanaged things, and didn't let detectives do their job. Some said the chief personally ruled out key suspects who investigators believed had a motive to abduct the women. Daryl Moore said, "This was clearly the most micromanaged case I've ever seen. Seasoned detectives were not allowed to use their experience and judgment in this investigation. This is the only case where that happened, and I don't understand that." Regarding this, Knowles, who had originally come from the FBI and was trained for such major investigations, told the Springfield News Leader in 2002, "I don't recall that being an issue back then. What anyone wants to say 10 years later, I can't control that. It's certainly disappointing, and it's frustrating at the time to be doing everything you possibly can." Perhaps the unprecedented and mounting pressure ruined the atmosphere in the office, because without a doubt, it was one of the most extensive and expensive investigations in Springfield's history. Police spokeswoman Lisa Cox said in an interview in 2015, "The case has never been suspended and has always been assigned to at least one of our detectives who follows up on the ongoing incoming tips." So their absurd disappearance went unattended except for incoming leads, and the case files of the Springfield Three are still officially filed under missing, and what happened to them on that June evening remains a mystery.
Oops, sorry guys, my microphone was off again. Anyway, this next piece I'm going to show you is a what most likely happened scenario with this. Sorry everybody. Stupid microphone needs to be changed so bad. Okay, and like I said, there's no way of knowing for sure, but this is their kind of ideals as to what may have happened. I have a strong liking to that Larry, the twin, one of the twins, sorry. And kind of always have. It's just very convenient that the guy had the ability and the band and the history and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but it's a grueling scenario, like as far as what the hell happened. So all right, guys, let's see here. All right.
June ought to be a time of celebration for a senior student in high school. Graduation symbolizes the beginning of adulthood, marking the conclusion of one journey and the start of another. Graduation is a cause for celebration, with a large number of newly graduated students attending post-ceremony parties with
I
their
agree.
families and friends, ushering in what is hopefully a bright and prosperous future. In June 1992, high school graduates in Missouri were anticipating a summer filled with farewells and preparations for higher education or employment. However, that year's graduating class was overcome with anxiety and despair. One day after their ceremony, 2 girls from their class were reported missing, along with the mother of one of these girls. The investigation into the Springfield 3 has been a source of frustration for investigators for over 3 decades, leaving distraught family and friends with many unanswered questions about their fate. Join Bad Things as we immerse ourselves into the timeline, the theories, and what we think most likely happened to the Springfield 3. On June 6, 1992, Suzanne Streeter, age 19, and Stacy McCall, age 18, received their diplomas from Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri. They intended to celebrate the occasion by attending several graduation parties that evening, followed by an overnight stay at a hotel in Branson. They would then visit a water park the following morning with a group of friends and fellow graduates. However, by 10:30 p.m., they had lost interest in driving to Branson and decided to drive to the water park the following morning. They decided they would spend the night at the home of their friend, Janelle Kirby, instead of their planned hotel stay. McCall called her mother, Janice, to check in with her and to tell her about the change in their plans. Streeter and McCall then attended a party at the home of one of Janelle's neighbors and stayed there until about 2 a.m. By now, the girls were exhausted and ready to go to bed, but Janelle's house was too crowded with visiting family members for them to sleep over. The 2 friends then arranged to spend the night at Streeter's home at 1717 East Delmar Street, which she and her 47-year-old mother, Cheryl Levitt, shared. Levitt, who was a single mother, was employed at New Attitudes Hair Salon as a cosmetologist. Cheryl and her daughter had only just moved into this home the previous April. Levitt also had a son named Bart, but she had become estranged from him over the course of several years. Janice received assurances from Streeter and McCall that they would return the following morning and that the group would go to the water park as a group. The following morning, when Streeter and McCall failed to show up at Janelle's home, Janelle tried to call them multiple times but received no answer. She was initially unconcerned, presuming that the 2 girls had slept in after their late-night
Welcome,
parties.
James.
However, as the hours passed, Janelle began to worry and made her way to the East Delmar Street house to see if the girls were there. As soon as Janelle and her boyfriend Mike arrived at the house, they noticed something strange. The front porch light was shattered, and glass had been scattered across the floor. The damage was limited to the globe that encased the bulb and not the bulb itself. However, this did not trouble them, and Mike even swept the glass up. Each of the 3 women's vehicles was parked in the front of the yard. However, Streeter's vehicle, which she consistently parked in the same location every day, was situated in a different part of the front yard. Janelle and Mike discovered the front door unlocked, but no one was home. They assumed that their friends had already left for the water park and that they had missed them. The phone rang just as they were about to leave. Janelle answered it and was greeted on the other end of the line by an unfamiliar male voice, spewing out crude remarks. She quickly hung up. Streeter had, it turned out, been the recipient of vulgar phone calls of late, which Janelle knew about, so she was not overly perturbed. After hanging up, Mike and Janelle left for their water park day. Following seeing no sign of Streeter and McCall at the water park, Janelle decided that it would be wise to return to Streeter's home to see where they were. But upon her and Mike's arrival, they discovered Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, who had also been looking for her daughter. While looking around the empty house, Janice noticed something strange. The purses of all 3 women were arranged in a line on the floor of Streeter's bedroom. Levitt's dog Cinnamon was inside the house and was distressed and anxious while running around the home. It seemed that nothing had been taken, and there were no indications that the door had been forced open. They discovered that a message had been left on the answering machine. Janelle recalled hearing the same male voice from the phone earlier, making vulgar remarks once more when she listened to it. Regrettably, she erased this message by mistake. This wasn't Janelle's only mistake, though. As they finally made a call to the authorities and waited for the police to arrive, Janelle made the controversial decision to clean the house, thereby potentially contaminating the crime scene. After a brief investigation, the 3 women were believed missing by the Springfield Police Department, and the FBI arrived a few days later to investigate. Law enforcement and local residents conducted numerous community-wide investigations during the first 2 weeks.
No, this wasn't anywhere near there, but it's still, that's a good question, Aurora, considering everything he's done.
Including divers who inspected Lake Springfield and the James River in search of the bodies. During this period, more than 20,000 posters depicting the missing women were displayed around Springfield. Some of these posters are still displayed on business window fronts to this day. The case garnered significant media coverage, inspiring profiles on The Oprah Winfrey Show, 48 Hours, and America's Most Wanted. The theories regarding the disappearance of the women who seemingly vanished into thin air revolve mainly around potential suspects who might have murdered them. The possibility of them running away was quickly dismissed by the police, who began investigating suspects with potential motives to harm the 3 women. Dustin Reckler. Dustin Reckler was Streeter's former boyfriend. A few months before the disappearance of the women, he broke into a mausoleum in Springfield Cemetery and stole gold fillings valued at $30 from a skull. Streeter ended their relationship as a result of this incident. Because Streeter had supplied investigators with a statement regarding the mausoleum break-in and was rumored to be a probable witness against Reckler in court, the police took an interest in Reckler. It was reported that Reckler and his 2 accomplices in the mausoleum break-in were in the area on the evening when the women disappeared. Reckler and his accomplices cooperated with the police, passed lie detector tests, and were ultimately cleared as potential suspects. Bart Streeter. The fact that Bart Streeter had a history of alcoholism, aggression, and that he had a complicated relationship with both his mother and his sister put him on the suspects list. His alibi for the day of his sister's and mother's disappearance is that he had been drinking and had gone home, where he quickly passed out. Because he had been alone, his account could not be corroborated by anyone. However, no evidence connected him to the disappearance of his sister and mother. Bart passed a polygraph test and has cooperated with investigators for the last 31 years. Larry Dwayne Hall. If you don't know who Larry Hall is, check out our video, What Blackbird Got Wrong About the Larry Hall Case. Here's a quick catch-up. Larry Hall is a murderer and a suspected serial killer from the United States. Hall, an American Revolution and Civil War enthusiast, is said to have kidnapped, assaulted, tortured, and murdered multiple girls and women while performing historical reenactments throughout the Midwest. In November 1993, following the discovery of the remains of a 15-year-old girl, Hall was arrested by the police and found guilty of her kidnapping. He eventually admitted to that and another murder, but later recanted his statements regarding both offenses. Hall has confessed and recanted to over 35 murders since his arrest. Law enforcement officials suspect that he may have been behind the disappearances and murders of 40 to 50 young women, a number that would rank him among the most prolific serial killers in the history of the United States. Larry Hall is often mentioned in this case. There is one source that contends Larry once admitted to stalking and slaying the Springfield 3, but no added sources have been made public to corroborate this claim. Larry has a documented record of invading women's homes to abduct them, and Springfield was undoubtedly within his range of operations. Furthermore, Streeter and McCall appear to be his type of victim, as they both possessed certain physical attributes he actively pursued. Furthermore, Larry was the owner of a Dodge van that corresponded to a description given by eyewitnesses in the Springfield 3 case. A local woman reported seeing a green Dodge van driven by a young woman who resembled Streeter shortly after the three women vanished. The woman said that the Streeter lookalike appeared terrified. The woman claimed to have overheard a male accompanying this girl say, "Don't do anything stupid." The investigation quickly became preoccupied with finding the green Dodge van. The van was allegedly spotted in the vicinity of 1717 East Delmar Street, which fueled rumors that it belonged to the assailant responsible for the women's disappearance. If the report of the van sighting was accurate and is connected to the disappearance of the Springfield 3, Larry Hall would be the most prominent suspect in this investigation. After 31 years, investigators are no closer to solving.
I'll never, ever, 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 ever. And if I would have been alive way back in the 70s and in a grown adult under those stupid mutton chop things, I'll never get that. It's got to be the dumbest looking thing ever. I don't know what guy would ever be comfortable wearing. Well, lots of them did, but no, not me. Sorry.
Solving the Springfield 3 case than they were in 1992. The closest they've come to a credible suspect is another confessor like Larry Hall. Robert Craig Cox is arguably the most widely recognized suspect in the Springfield 3's disappearance. Cox is the only documented person who has admitted to knowing with certainty that the three are dead and where their bodies are. In December 1978, Sharon Zellers, an employee of Disney World, didn't return home at the end of her workday. Her vehicle was discovered abandoned in an orange grove a few weeks later. The following day, Zellers' corpse was discovered completely submerged in a sewage lift station close to the grove. Due to the severe decomposition of Zellers' body, her identification was made possible through dental records. According to the coroner's report, Zeller succumbed to blunt force trauma, with 14 blows to the head being the cause of death. Most alarmingly, the coroner's findings showed that she had possibly survived for 20 to 30 minutes after this heinous assault. The police didn't have to search too long before they found 19-year-old Cox, who was vacationing in the area at the time with his family. Unfortunately, the evidence against Cox was limited, and legal action against him would not be initiated for years. On the evening that Zellers vanished, Cox staggered into the hotel room where his family was staying in Orlando.
Yeah, Jane, I was born in 1974. I'm 50 this year.
He was bleeding heavily, on the edge of passing out, and he was missing the tip of his tongue. Later, he reported to police that a big black man assaulted him during an altercation at the nearby Skate World skate building, causing him to bite his tongue and sever it. He reported to the police that he was involved in a fight with 4 black men and 4 white men. He claimed that he got in his car after the fight, drove around aimlessly, and became disoriented before returning to Skate World, where a stranger offered him a ride back to the motel. Despite this, Cox's vehicle had no sign of blood, contrary to what one might expect from someone who was bleeding so heavily. Furthermore, nobody at Skate World recalled the alleged major fight in which Cox claimed to have taken part, and a purported stranger who had taken Cox back to the motel. The 3 hairs found in Zeller's vehicle, according to forensic technicians who analyzed them, were virtually indistinguishable from the chest hairs of Cox. Typo blood was also found at the scene of the crime, which matches Cox's blood type. Furthermore, a bloody military-style boot print was found in her car. Cox was an ex-Army Ranger. Despite an abundance of circumstantial evidence, the absence of a smoking gun prevented law enforcement from pressing charges, at least until Cox was apprehended red-handed in 2 comparable kidnappings that exposed his abusive and violent tendencies towards women. The jury was not deterred by the absence of a smoking gun and concluded that the circumstantial evidence alone was sufficient to prove Cox's guilt. Cox was sentenced to death in 1988, but his story was far from over thanks to the Florida Supreme Court. In its assessment of Cox's case, the court overturned his conviction on the grounds that insufficient evidence existed. They denied the prosecution's request to retry the case, and Cox was later released. And this is where the Springfield connection appears. Cox moved in with his brother in Springfield, Missouri, apparently across the
Welcome,
street
Alex.
from Streeter and Levitt at the time of their disappearance. In 1995, during an armed robbery in Decatur, Texas, Cox held a 12-year-old girl at gunpoint and is still serving out his prison sentence for this crime. He will be eligible for parole in 2025. The exact timing of Cox's decision to engross himself in the tragic Springfield 3 saga is unknown. However, an early 1996 Springfield News Leader article mentions him discussing the case with local law enforcement officials. Cox claims that he knows what happened to the women and where they are buried, but has refused to say where. He has provided a weak alibi for the time when the women were abducted, which police have since discounted. In 1996, Dennis Graves, an investigative reporter, interviewed Cox in a Texas prison where he inquired about the Springfield 3. Cox: I know that they are dead. I'll say that, and I know that. Graves: that's not a theory. Cox: I just know that they are dead. That's not my theory. I just know that. There's no doubt about that. Cox has said that after his mother passes away, he will disclose what happened and where the women are buried. Investigators speculate that the fact that Cox was a utility locator for the city at the time of the women's disappearance could have enabled him to gain access to the residence and surprise the women. There is a strong likelihood that Cheryl was the intended target of Cox, while the two girls who were not scheduled to be at home that evening became entangled in the incident. People in Springfield still wonder where the three missing women could be, while the question of what happened to them remains a mystery that is nowhere close to being solved. They were wonderful people, fun people, just normal people, said Stephanie Appleby, a friend of Stacy and Susie, in 2017. We all carry them with us in our hearts and still pray that they come home and that we get some sort of closure. However, Janice McCall vows never to give up, believing her daughter could still be alive. Until I know 100% that Stacy is deceased, I will never declare her dead, she said. They're going to have to find some remains somewhere before I call her legally dead. It's not for any other reason that if I do and she's not dead, think of how mad she'd be when she gets back. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find...
Right, that goes for that. Hold on, guys. Okay, I wanted to give... Where's it at? Hold on. I had some interviews I was going to play. It didn't show the... Okay, it's all right. Hang on. One moment. Me too, James. I quit drinking cold turkey like nothing, but smoking, it ain't working. I have an interview with Bart Streeter that I was going to play for you guys here in regards to this. This was the one girl's brother, Stacy's brother, or not Stacy, but Susie's brother. Sorry about that. Hold on here.
Her mother dated Robert Craig Cox when she was a teenager.
I remember arguing with her on a way to friend and then fiance.
We heard from
Okay, hold on here. Don't mind the beginning of this, but here we go.
a woman who we called Jennifer. Her mother dated Robert Craig Cox when she was a teenager.
I remember arguing with her on a way to the courthouse because she said, Bob says we went to church. You know, he wants me to say we were at church. And we were like, Mom, we don't go to church. That just isn't true. She's like, I know. I don't know what to do. She was scared.
We also heard about a DM that I received from a woman named Shelley. She told me that she was picked up on the side of the road in Springfield, Missouri, when she was just 14 years old. After watching a true crime show that featured the 3 missing women case, she said that she recognized this man as Robert Craig Cox. After I read this message from Shelley, I thought back to Jennifer, who told me that Robert Craig Cox would drive them to Whitewater in his pickup truck.
He used to, on weekends, take me and my friends up to Whitewater in the back of his pickup truck. You know, monsters rarely seem capable of doing what they do. People all the time say, God, he was so nice. He lived right next door. So I say, gosh, but it's Bob. He couldn't have done that. The guy took us to Whitewater and was silly, but I guess you never know.
But this episode isn't about him. In this episode, I was finally able to speak with Bart Streeter.
My name is Bart Streeter. I am the son of Cheryl Levitt and the brother of Suzanne Streeter.
I'm your host, Ann Roderick Jones, and this is a bonus episode of the Springfield 3, a podcast about the disappearance of 3 women who forever changed a small Missouri town and the people in it. Bart is not in the habit of doing interviews with the media. Since the disappearance of his mother and sister, he tells me that different media outlets have done everything from getting the age of his sister wrong, to spelling his mother's name incorrectly, to completely sensationalizing incidents that occurred in the home. Bart grew up in Washington State with his mother and sister.
My mother, sister, and I were primarily the family. My father wasn't around very often. And when he was, he'd come in, be there for a month or 2, and then he'd be gone again. So it was just the 3 of us. And it was wonderful.
Bart gives me some context on his mother and her marriages. He tells me that Cheryl was married 3 times, to his father, a man named Fred, and then Don Streeter. She wasn't someone who dated or had men coming in and out of the house. She had 3 relationships that all resulted in marriage. Bart tells me that his father wasn't around often. They divorced around the time Susie was born, and that he loved Fred and Dawn, despite the marriages not working out. Bart, Susie, Cheryl, and her husband Dawn all moved to Springfield in 1981 when he was 16 years old and Susie was 8.
When we first moved to Springfield, we rented a house. And the first thing that as a family we noticed was everything was so much slower than where we came from. We all talked way too fast. We wanted things done very quickly. We were looking to buy a house, or my parents were looking to buy a house. And it was difficult for us. There was this culture shock in the United States, and we had to settle in. And I remember having conversations about that where we have to change our approach to life. And at 16 years old, I didn't want to. I wanted the speed of life and culture around me to continue the way it was. And it's a beautiful town. It's not as beautiful as the Pacific Northwest, in my opinion. I never really felt comfortable in Springfield, and that's been a lifetime, even before the kidnappings of my mother and sister and Stacy, I just didn't feel comfortable there. There was something about Springfield that just didn't work for me, and it may have been because of the Bible Belt.
Bart's not wrong about the Ozarks being the Bible Belt, but I didn't know anything else growing up. My grandparents owned a Christian bookstore on Commercial Street. I attended Southern Baptist Church, where you couldn't dance or drink alcohol. When I'm back home and I meet someone new, I'm almost always asked what church I attend. In the Ozarks, religion is the backbone of the community. But back to the Streeter family. So they were all living in Springfield, where Cheryl goes on to work at New Attitudes Hair Salon.
I never knew my mother to be anything but a cosmetologist. She was 19 years old when she had me, so her profession, her career goal was, I don't know if it was different than that. But she worked my entire life, especially when I was younger, because my father was so unreliable in the relationship. She provided everything. And we really never wanted for anything because my mother worked 12, 13, 14-hour days, 6 days a week. I'd moved to Springfield moved back to Springfield in September of 1991. We had lived together from September until about January or February of 1992. And then Susie and I had gone and gotten our own house, and my mom had purchased the house on Delmar. And she had shown us the house on Delmar. Around Christmas time, she took us to the house and made arrangements with the owner, and we went and saw the house. And it was this small little bungalow-style house. And if you know my mother, I could just see what she was going to do with the house.
It was this house, the one on Delmar, that they just moved into, where Susie and Cheryl and Stacy likely disappeared from. Bart talks to me about his mother, what she was like, and her reputation after the night of the Cheryl and Stacy.
It was like we were growing up together because Mom had me when she was 19 years old. My mother had a form of raising me that I think some people haven't never heard of, but most of it was hands off. She didn't force her belief systems on me. She didn't force me to go to church. She did not interfere in a lot of things, but there was a lot of responsibility. I did the chores in the house. Wasn't always happy about it, and I didn't always want to do the chores, but I vacuumed and I did the dishes and I took the trash out every single day. I look back on it and I'm so grateful for it because I can take care of myself. My mother taught me how to take care of myself. I do my own laundry. I do everything. I know how to set a goal and move forward and accomplish it because of her example. So to see her reputation be besmirched so early in the investigation was so deeply frustrating. I've thought about this many times. If my sister would have been at somebody's house and she would have been kidnapped with the mother and the daughter and my mother, the focus would have been on them. And I think that was part of it. Part of it is we didn't fit into the mold of Springfield. And there is a Christian mold in Springfield. It's not that we were ever anti-religious. We just didn't go to church. We didn't cultivate that community because my mother was an incredibly private person. Not that she didn't socialize and didn't want to socialize. I'm sure she knew the neighbors. Those types of things were at the core of who she was, but she didn't really fit into that Christian mold. And I don't think people who don't live in the Bible Belt understand how deeply that's ingrained in their communities.
I wanted to talk to Bart about the night that his mother and sister and Stacy disappeared. I'm hoping to get some sort of timeline, and I also want to know where he was, what he was doing, and his reaction, all in his own words.
My mother and sister and Stacy were kidnapped. The estimated timeline is between when they left the last party, graduation evening, and 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. That was Saturday into Sunday. I went to work Monday morning like I always did and stopped at Get and Go and got my coffee and my donut from Daylight Donuts. And I was working for a small land surveying company. I was a crew chief, and we were doing a lot of mortgage surveys at the time, and I could do 3 or 4 a day. Got my guys together, got the truck, went out and did the mortgage surveys. It was a beautiful morning. There was really nothing odd about it. I was a little hungover because I was still pretty young and I enjoyed my parties on the weekends. And by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, I was doing good. Had drank enough Gatorade and feeling good. We'd gone back to the office, and when I got back to the office, I picked up my other 2 surveys, dropped the other 2 we'd concluded off to the drafts person, and went to pick up my other 2 for the day. And there was a notice in my inbox. It was just a message, the little message pads to call the Springfield Police Department. And I looked at it kind of dubious because I hadn't finished community service on another alcohol-related charge that I had gotten about 6 months earlier. As I say, I looked at it kind of dubiously, and I thought, I don't want to call the Springfield Police Department. I don't want to deal with this right now. But something hit me that I needed to call. So I called the number, and a lady answered. She asked me if I had seen my mother and sister. And I said I had not seen or spoken to my mother and sister in about 3 months. And then she said, well, it was graduation weekend. And I thought, wow, I wasn't invited to graduation. And then I thought, well, my grandfather and aunt, family members, had probably come in from Washington State, and they had gone someplace. So I said that my grandfather or aunt may have come in from out of town, and they may be in Branson or someplace celebrate, in some type of form of family celebration. And she said, well, we don't think that's what's happened. Could you come down to the police station? And I said, absolutely. And I dropped everything I was doing, quickly stuck my head in the door of my boss and told him I would be leaving and I would explain it later. And I drove to the police station. And when I walked in the door, the receptionist stood up. She said, go through the small swinging door, get on the elevator, go to the 2nd or 3rd floor to the special crimes unit. And I did that. And when I got in the elevator, I realized I didn't even introduce myself. How did this person know who I was? And then kind of a dread hit me. This isn't going to be good. And I got upstairs and I took a right, took another right, and there was a door that said, and I can't remember to this day if it was actually a plaque that said Special Crimes Unit. In my memory, it was just a little piece of paper that said Special Crimes Unit taped to the frame of the door. And there was a desk outside the door, and there was nobody at the desk, but there was a cup of coffee or something there. And I said, okay, somebody's supposed to be staged here, but they're not here. And I just walked in. And when I looked to the right, it was a pretty long room, and it was full of people at desks, and they were obviously detectives and support. And at the end of the room, there was a big desk, like a meeting desk with a bunch of people around it. And there was butcher paper on the wall. And each one of those sheets of butcher paper had our lives on them. One of them was titled Cheryl Levitt. One was titled Susie Streeter. One was titled Stacy McCall. And I didn't know who Stacy McCall was. And one of them was me, and I think there was one with my father. And I walked towards the meeting table and stopped and took in the entire situation and said in a normal voice, what the hell is going on here? And as I said it, it almost sounded like I was yelling it in my mind, because it was confusing and it was shocking. And from there, I kind of went into a military mode with a heightened state of awareness. At that point, you're trying so hard to understand what you're being told, but it didn't make sense, especially when you know my mother on the level that I know my mother. This is the most responsible person I've ever met. And at that point, David Asher walked up to me, Detective David Asher. He was the person that I spoke to for probably the next 45 to 60 days. And that was the beginning of the nightmare, of a hell that just hasn't ended for 29 years.
What was your role in this? I know we talked about you going to the police station. Were you readily available and open to the police department for questioning, for anything that they needed?
Absolutely, 100%. I had never been that open in my entire life. There was nothing.
He had a weird relationship with his mother and his sister. It was on again, off again, on again, off again. He didn't know Stacy. He didn't know her friends, but it, which is why I think initially he became a suspect per se in the beginning. But it worked out. He ended up not being one. So just saying. But yeah, it was an on again, off again relationship with his family.
Thing off limits with me.
When reading about this case, there are numerous reports that Cheryl was talking to someone on the phone the night of the disappearance around 11 p.m. that evening. It's reported that she was painting a dresser, but I could never find out exactly who she was talking to.
So we know that, you talking about your mom fixing up her homes. We know that your mom, or maybe you can tell me if your mom was refurbishing a dresser that evening.
Oh, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. She was talking to her best friend, a woman that I have known my entire life named Val. And for Val to say that my mother was refurbishing a dresser makes absolute sense. That's what my mother did.
Did Val say that anything seemed wrong with your mother during that time?
I've never spoken to Val about that. In fact, I only saw Val one time in the last 29 years. And it's strange. Generally, when it comes to my family, we haven't discussed this case, and I would consider Val family. It's strange.
Why is that?
Why is that? I don't know. I really, really don't know. There's things that should have been discussed many, many, many times.
Maybe for Bart and his family, some things are just too close to talk about. Bart said that he was only in the Delmar house twice. The first time was prior to moving in, when his mother was in the process of possibly buying the house. They went out to a nice dinner, and Cheryl took her kids by to see the house. The second time was after the disappearance.
So I went to the house, met my uncle, and we opened up the door, and I went inside. The first thing I noticed was there was a notebook on the couch table. And I picked it up and I flipped through it, and there was hundreds of people's names in it. And it was a log because they had created the command center at my mother's house. Okay. I come to find out later that they had staged things in the house because all the people that went into the house between 7 o'clock Sunday morning and the time the police came and wrangled everybody out of the house, locked the door, and put a note on the door, there had been about 18 people in and out of that house. When the police report was made, I think there was fewer, but there had been 18 people, different people in and out of my mother's house. The crime scene had been completely 100% tainted. Things had been cleaned and arranged, and the purses were moved to the dining room table. And so, because they didn't know, that is just a forgiven thing. They can spin it to be forgiven. But what if it had been me that went into the house? Would they have spun it a different way? Then I noticed the fingerprint.
No, Susie actually went to go live with Bart for a little while and couldn't handle his partying. So she moved back in with her mother. It was a short-lived thing. So yeah, very true, CLK. Sorry, Kim.
And I thought, oh my God, my mom would be just horrified. And it made me sad that they'd left the house with all the fingerprint dust everywhere. Then I walked into the kitchen and opened up the refrigerator, and my sister's graduation cake was sitting there. And I lost it, and I left, and I never went back.
Bart was a suspect in the disappearance of his mother, sister, and Stacy, and this has followed him for his entire life. But when he talks to me, he doesn't shy away from telling me about the times he's been in trouble with the law over the years.
The cycle was Mom would help me out, let me get back on my feet again. I would hand her so much money every payday, and she had an envelope in the same dresser we were talking about earlier, a big manila envelope, and she would put money in there for me. And then after 2 or 3 months, I'd be on my way. I'd go, okay, new adventure. Let's go someplace else. But the cycle was I would start drinking. And I knew I wasn't supposed to drink in my mom's house. And I would do it anyway. And it was disrespectful, and I would do it. So the periods of time that I would be in town weren't very long. And there weren't fights. There weren't arguments. It was, my mother was a very matter-of-fact person. And she would come to me and she would say, the people you need to be around. And she was talking about AA.
He talks openly about his alcohol abuse, but to put it mildly, it seems as if Bart doesn't have a whole lot of faith in people because of this disappearance, a devastating occurrence that has set the pace for his entire life.
My mother wasn't always proud of the things I've done because I'm a drinker. I'm a binge drinker. I don't daily drink, but my mother had dealt with enough alcohol in her life, and she dealt with enough people who struggle with it. So she had these expectations that were nothing but pure and good for my life. But I wasn't living up to them, and I wasn't going to. And people have a hard time with me being so forthcoming about these types of things. I don't need to hide from the reality, because the reality, this is my reality. And if I hide from it, it doesn't make any sense. People need to know, because there's been so much speculation and so much misinformation and so many half-truths.
I told you earlier that Bart doesn't do a lot of interviews. He tells me that he's been portrayed in a negative light, most recently on an episode of People Investigates. This particular show came out right as I was writing this podcast. I watched it at the time, and then I rewatched it after speaking to Bart.
And People magazine was an example of that, where one of the producers talked to me for quite a while. And I was considering doing the show. And then when I decided not to do the show, they recreated something that never happened. I never stumbled around drinking in front of my mother's house, throw a bottle of the house and banged on the door while my mother peeked out the door in terror. I never hit my sister.
Bart's speaking about a part of the show where an actor portrays him and his family and shows him hitting his sister Susie. He tells me that he didn't hit his sister, but someone had.
My sister and I did have an argument. That argument wasn't even about the level of the stereo. The argument was, she told me to turn it down. And I told her no, that I was partying. And she walked up behind me and reached over my shoulder and turned down the volume. And in the process of doing that, she knocked over this little clown lamp that we had bought together, because we both love to go flea markets and little antique stores and stuff like that. We just decorated our house together. My sister and I bought everything that was in our home. And I jumped up and turned around and instantly saw the look in her eyes and realized my sister's been abused before.
Throughout this entire investigation, there seems to be a huge focus on the fact that she dated grave robbers, but not a whole lot of focus on an abusive relationship. I wanted to do some digging to confirm Bart's statement. According to a newsletter article from June 10th, 1992, Mike Kovacs, then age 17, is quoted in this article saying that he and Susie went out for about 2 years, breaking up the previous September. He said that they had fought several times and went on to say, quote, "Sure, we hit each other before when we were first going out, back when we were 15, unquote. He went on to say that after the disappearance, he was worried about her and didn't know what to do. Susie Streeter was granted a 10-day restraining order against Mike Kovacs, in which he was not allowed to, quote, abuse, threaten to abuse, molest, or disturb the peace of the perpetrator, unquote. In addition, he was not allowed to enter the home, school, or workplace. It's reported by friends that Streeter was frightened of Kovacs and had coworkers walk her to her car at night. Kovacs volunteered for a polygraph test after the disappearance, which he passed. The same article states that Mike said he was alone that night and in the early morning hours of the disappearance, but that he did not have anyone to verify this information for him. It appears that Mike Kovacs was eliminated early as a suspect in this case.
And she told me he'd been abusive. It was known by the police department. The restraining order was obviously known by the police department. See, there's so many different avenues that they haven't made public. There's people that their privacy and their reputations have been protected. Completely 100% protected. And then there's not. And the bias that I see now that has happened from day one should be obvious to all. But how can it be when these other things aren't discussed?
So, did the Springfield Police Department choose to look into certain suspects more than others? I want to know if Bart has any theories about who could have done this. So far, he's been incredibly forthcoming in our interviews and chats in between. I think that if he had an opinion on who did this, he'd share it with me.
It's a very hard question for me because I
Welcome,
can't
Christina.
imagine anybody wanting to hurt my family. But I am also a realist, and I don't know, 6 degrees of separation. Who were they around? What was going on in their lives? That's the police's job to do that. And what I've been able to gather from all of this is there's direct lines to people that are those types of people, that would murder somebody. And there's been so many theories put forth, and some of them are just ridiculous, and others are plausible. But I don't have enough information, and I'm that type of person. I need information to be able to make a rational, sound assessment of a situation. And if I'm not given that information, then I'm still sitting in a place of ambiguity, even when it comes to that.
Bart told me that for a long time, he was convinced that Robert Craig Cox had committed this crime. But these days, he no longer has an answer.
Robert Cox, I was convinced Robert Cox had committed this crime, to the point where I would say things where people would say, well, he knows. Bart must know because he's said he knows. Well, no, I was just convinced because I needed somebody to put the villain label on. I needed the villain. And I've said this before. There was a time that I would have put a bullet in someone's head over this. There's absolutely a time.
Bart now lives in Portland, Oregon. He went back to the Pacific Northwest, and he's still looking for his mom and sister. What I would like to know is, what would you say to your mom and sister if you could say something to them right now?
I love you. I miss you every single day. And I apologize for being so neglectful. How do you communicate 29 years? You can't. I think about my mother and sister hundreds of times a day. I'll hear a Neil Diamond song, and the tears just start flowing. My mother was an incredible dancer, and people don't know that about her. She was raised in the 40s and 50s. So bobby socks and poodle skirts and 50s music. And when I was young, we would dance. We would do the twist, and the joy that came out of my mother was deep inside of her. And it was infectious. And I used to dance that way with my sister. And Mom wouldn't join in much when Susie and I would dance. But I was never self-conscious. You know how boys are. They go out on the dance floor and they're so self-conscious. But with my mother, never. And I'm sorry that she never got to spend time with her grandchildren.
Really sad. Really sad. The poor guy. I don't know. I don't know. Let me see here. I think last news break.
Police are working extended shifts around the clock trying to find Cheryl Levitt, her daughter Suzanne Streeter, and Suzanne's best friend Stacy McCall. The three disappeared from this house early Sunday morning. The women had attended Kickapoo graduation ceremonies at Hammond Student Center Saturday night. Suzanne and Stacy had gone to a couple of parties, then returned here to Suzanne's home. Investigators suspect foul play. The woman's cars were in the driveway. Their personal belongings, including their clothes and purses, were in the house. There was no sign of a struggle.
We are still asking for individuals that may have had contact with either the McCall girl, Miss Streeter, or Miss Levitt to make contact with our department so we can narrow down the time frames that we're working with as to physically when was the last time they were seen and known to be safe.
Investigators say a stolen car appears to be their best lead so far. The car belongs to the folks who live across the street from Stacy McCall, here on Meadowlark Street. It was stolen from this parking lot on East Sunshine between 5 and 10 p.m. Monday. It's described as a red 1991 Chevy Cavalier with Missouri license AKF 496. The young man from whom it was stolen was a classmate of Suzanne Streeter and Stacy McCall.
We have not been able to locate that vehicle at this time. However, we are not sure that it would in any way be associated with their disappearance. The possibility does exist, therefore we've got to either make it a part of the case or to eliminate it from consideration.
The FBI is treating the disappearance as a possible kidnapping. One FBI agent has been assigned to work with local police. More than 30 Springfield officers have been assigned to the case.
The Springfield Police Department has committed all
No problem, SRB.
manpower available to the investigation of the disappearance of these three ladies. The investigations division itself is divided into 2 teams, each team working 12-hour shifts. In addition to that, the department's crisis action team has been assigned to this case, along with additional supplemental support out of the uniform division.
Glenn says police will continue to work around the clock until all leads have been exhausted. Dennis Graves, KY3 Action News.
All right, and I looked around. I haven't been able to find anything new on this as far as updates may go. Let me see here. I think the newest update I could find on this was two years back. Yeah, 2 years ago, you guys. Which is sad that they've not been able to pull anything out of this in this long, you know? There's some tarot readings. I don't play into that a whole lot. Nothing against it. And, you know, all due respect, it's just not my thing. Let me see. Ken Maines covered it, put his opinion on it. So the new, oh, wait a minute. Now, I will say this. This came up 6 years ago. Hold on a minute. But I don't know that there's anything that you can give it. You know what I mean? They dropped a press conference about this, and I don't know. I don't think anything came from it, okay? Hold on a minute here. I've heard it all over the state, Christina. You don't have to worry about that. We've covered so many cases out of Missouri that it just doesn't make sense how these things happen there. Just put it that.
Gallooni, Hamden District Attorney. I'm here to give a very simple and brief update. In the last 24 hours, the search has continued since last night when we confirmed the recovery of a third body. The Springfield Police Department, along with the Hamden District Attorney's Office, have continued to search the property. The Springfield Police Department Homicide Unit is leading the investigation, specifically by Captain Trent Duda, along with myself and members of my office. We're intensely searching, as you can tell. We have used technology that many of you might have seen. It is ground penetrating radar. As a private industry has provided those services to the investigation. So needless to say, the search has been very thorough, is very painstaking, and is very much ongoing, and it remains active. I do not have any significant updates at this juncture for you other than to say we have used the ground penetrating radar technology. which has given us some preliminary results and will give us more formalized information and a report in the next 24 hours, according to the person who's working and conducting that search for us. So that information will be a part of our investigation in the next day or so. And our search continues. Again, the Springfield Police Department, led by Captain Trent Duda, and the homicide unit has done a terrific job. We also have crime scene services from the Springfield Police Department working very, very hard, and I commend them for their hard work. And again, it's ongoing, and we'll do our best to keep you informed as the day unfolds. And our expectation is we're going to be here for days, if not longer than that.
We saw you guys with shovels before. I mean, them must have.
There isn't, Christina, nothing.
Found something. Was it evidence? Was it potentially another body?
I'm not going to comment on any specifics necessarily, but a part of our search involves some hand digging. It's not necessarily indicative of finding something that would be terribly relevant. It's really just a part of the search, and that, I think, indicates how thoroughly this is being conducted and the time and hours being involved in the work in making sure that if there's anything of relevance to our investigation, if there are any other victims, we're going to find it or them.
Have there been remains found, Anthony, other than the 3 bodies that we know about?
Not at this point.
Can you tell us anything about the suspect? Did he live alone? Did he live with other people?
I'm not going to comment on the suspect right now. We're still in a very early phase of the investigation. I think that kind of specificity is probably inappropriate right now. And any details of anybody who's considered a person of interest or a suspect, I'm not going to get into.
Did he live alone?
I'm not going to get into that.
I know that we touched upon this yesterday during the press conference, but what was that call? What was that piece of information that led you to this home days after that initial?
I'm reticent to speak about those kinds of specifics. What I said yesterday is that additional information came into the Springfield Police Department, to which they responded and brought them to this address, which really initiated this search and the discovery of the 3 bodies.
Can you tell us the location of the bodies?
Not specifically, no.
We have court documentation that says he also has a history in Westfield. Is there any concern that something like it going on in Westfield?
No. I can assure you at this point that is preliminary, and there's nothing beyond that information that would lead us to any other sites of interest to law enforcement.
Any indication of how long?
Say about those bodies?
Not at this point. There's nothing new.
Any indication of females, or is there male?
We're not confirming gender at this point. The remains are in the custody of the medical examiner.
Not that I know of,
in
Kate.
Boston, and the autopsy and testing with that is occurring as we speak.
It seemed like that there were people that.
How is the kidnapping victim doing?
I don't have any updates on her condition. My understanding is it's not a life-threatening condition, but she is at hospital under care.
Now, can you say anything about the victims, the 3 bodies that you did find? I mean, were they acquaintances? Were these strangers?
We have not even identified those victims yet.
He had a daughter that was living in Springfield. Any update on where she is and whose care she's under?
There's no update. My understanding is that any children involved with anybody involved in this case they are all safe. There's no concern for anybody at this point.
What about his mother? Is she safe?
Everybody is safe.
Any indication on how long those bodies were there? Were they in a state of decomposition?
Not at this juncture.
Did you say people were living in the house when you arrived on Tuesday or Wednesday? And if so, where are they now?
People were in the house. Where they are specifically right now, I don't know, and it's not terribly relevant. But everybody who was there is accounted for, and as far as we know, is safe.
Suspect criminal history?
I'm not going to speak to any Corey information, but I believe there's information in the public indicating that there are some things there, but I'm not going to get into specifics.
Is the LaShawn Weldon case still under investigation, and is that relevant?
To my understanding at this point, we're not connecting anything to any cold cases at this point. But again, this investigation is very fresh. We're 36 hours into this. So the primary focus is on the property, as you can tell, and we're going to build the case around that through the efforts of the Springfield Police Department and Hamden DA's office.
How long was he living here?
I'm not going to comment on that, and quite frankly, I'm not sure at this point. That's something that we'll nail down in the near days and weeks.
Can you kind of give us like a timeline of what's going to happen now and what's going to be happening in the future?
That's something that I and members of my office in the Springfield Police Department will talk about. But at this juncture, again, it's the preliminary phase of evidence gathering and making sure that we're as thorough and careful as possible.
And again,
Just after speaking with people in the area who expressed concerns with safety, they're worried. Is there anybody who could be connected to him in the area? Anything?
Yeah, he
As I
won't
said
release
yesterday,
anything.
there's no
Obviously, you can
heightened
see
threat
that.
to anybody in the area. As far as we know, there's no reason to believe there's any accomplices or anybody responsible who's out and can do any harm to anybody. We're pretty satisfied that people are safe in the city and beyond.
Is the Westfield Police Department involved in the investigation?
There's no reason for them to be at this point.
Okay, I know that you just said acquaintance yesterday. This woman that was in the car with him. I mean, can you?
I don't believe I ever said acquaintance. You're talking about the car stop?
At the car stop, yes.
Yeah, the details of the police report are essentially in the public domain at this point, and I'm not going to confirm anything about their relationship beyond that.
You have an update on the condition of that woman in the car?
No, that question was asked. She's in the hospital and recovering, and she is not in any life-threatening condition at this point, as far as I understand it. At my direction, police have been in contact with her, but she is recovering at this point.
What does ground penetrating radar do?
Well, I think fairly obviously, Patrick, we're looking for objects underneath the surface. It is radar that goes underneath the surface, can penetrate the radio waves, will kick back and indicate to us whether there's an object there. It can also detect disturbed earth, which would indicate any kind of excavation or ground movement. It's sophisticated technology, and we're happy to have it. It's a great tool for investigators at this point, and it's again in this preliminary stage of making sure we gather any evidence that's available.
Who's supplying that technology for you? Is it an outside company or is that
a private company?
The area where you guys are digging, was there fresh grass there, or was it seem like it's been overturned recently?
I'm not going to get into those kinds of specifics. Suffice it to say that with that technology, we were able to pinpoint some areas of interest, and we're exploring that by hand and very, very carefully. And however long it takes, we'll be there and making sure we certainly don't miss anything.
Are there any other locations in Springfield or elsewhere that are being searched for?
No.
The radar technology, was that solicited by the police department or was that volunteered by the private company?
It was solicited by the investigation, by folks in my office, along with the Springfield Police Department, and the private company providing that was able to accommodate us rather quickly, which we appreciate. I don't want to give that out. I haven't spoken to there's an individual there. I think they're interested in keeping this as quiet as possible. They're providing the service to us, and we appreciate that. So we want to respect that confidentiality of sorts.
Can the commissioner kind of talk about his side of the things as well, since it is kind of a joint effort between?
Commissioner can certainly speak if he wants. By Massachusetts statute, the investigation of any unintended death is run by the district attorney. So the Springfield Police Department and the Hampden District Attorney's Office are jointly running this investigation, and it falls under my purview. And we're working hand in glove, and we're very pleased with I think our results so far. If the commissioner wishes to speak, he's of course more than welcome to do so.
I would just say that I would defer any investigative details to the district attorney by statute. He's in charge of the investigation. The men and women in the detective bureau working very hard, ably assisted by members of the district attorney's team. And then obviously I'd like to commend the men and women that were involved in the original arrest. Outstanding job to recognize that that young lady needed assistance, and remind everybody here that started off a routine traffic stop, which is something that the men and women at the Springfield Police Department do day in, day out. It's a very dangerous job. And sometimes even the most routine stops can lead us to the most significant details and discoveries.
There are some sources that are saying a child was taken into custody, into state custody from this home. Can you confirm that?
I'm not going to confirm that. I'm not at liberty to do so. My understanding and what I've conveyed to the press throughout is any children involved or possibly involved are safe and accounted for.
I don't know if this has been asked, but can you talk about the 2 days in between the arrest and the search beginning? What led to the search?
As I said before, there was additional information that came into the Springfield Police Department, which resulted in the response to the home, and that was the triggering event in the 2 days or so between Mr. Weldon's arrest and our being at this property.
Just have the timeline correct too. Was it Tuesday night that you guys initially received some notification, not Wednesday? Because neighbors that we spoke with were saying that they were seeing the police activity on Tuesday and then continuing into Wednesday.
No, if my days are correct, we were originally here on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So no, as far as I know, there was no police activity here of any significance or any relationship to what's happening here today. The response was Wednesday evening, and I arrived here at about 9.
Just for those of you that may not, if I didn't explain it, when they found these 3 bodies, they related this to the possibility of it being the Springfield 3. The other side of the investigation, I don't have any clues to it. I was linked to this from something else in regards to the Springfield 3. So that's why we're playing this right now.
9:30, along with other investigators, and we've been here ever since.
When you say that additional information led to this investigation, what was the original information that was the foundation that the additional information set on top of?
What's in the public domain, and what I'm going to confirm, is that Mr. Weldon was arrested on Sunday, was arraigned on Tuesday in district court when facts became more available to the public, and then additional information came in that interim, which led to our arrival here on Wednesday night.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay, let's see. 1 second. I think that's gonna do it. Yeah, Christina, it was put out as a link through one of the resources I use to go looking for these things. To that. So I don't know if anything ever came of that. I couldn't find anything after that as an update from that. But that was the newest update as to anything on this, which is sad to me that after all these years they've gotten nothing. There's a few possibles, you know what I mean? I'm really interested in Larry, the twin. He really did perk my interest, I'll say that. So about the closest I've gotten to anything to it, you know what I mean? But that's the Springfield 3, guys, and I would love to see something come from this, out of this eventually at some point, just for some closure. It would be really, really good. Especially for Stacy's mother, Bart, any of the people involved, the families, they deserve that, in my opinion. So, Mama Bear, are you here still, or did you have to jump back out? I think one of her kids was having some issues with schoolwork because they're homeschooled, so she might not be here. Okay, Rick, hello, hello. That's been said too, and it's very possible. And like I said, Larry, I don't know why his last name keeps slipping me, was in that realm of that neighborhood, that area, but it could have been somebody there watching a little bit harder for a longer period of time too. There's that too. There's a few. They had a lot of suspects in this initially, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't know, but that's the case, and that's where we're at with it at this point, guys. And that's gonna do it for today. I appreciate you guys joining us today. Miss Phil, hello, how are you? Good to see you. Good to have you here. Larry the twin, yes, Phil. That's the one I think. That's who I am most interested in, is Larry the twin. That's a good question, Sunday. Not necessarily, no. It didn't. And I don't think there was a specified target in this. I think it was just kind of a fly-by-night situation. Believe that or not, that doesn't happen often, but I don't think it was a specified target. So they believe that Cheryl was the target and that the girls were collateral damage. And it could be. I don't quite think that. Prisma Reyes. Let's see. I like when you guys give us stuff that you're interested in. Let me see. Let me see if I recognize that there, Raquel. Hold on. Let's see. That's interesting. Ah, I think I've heard this one. Hold on. I'll show you guys and see if you recognize this. I wrote it down, so we'll definitely be looking into it. Let's see. I'll give you a little quick peek to it. Yeah, Kim, I could see two people. With 3 women, 2 people could be involved, definitely.
It has been 5 years since the disappearance of a 26-year-old mother from Dallas. Despite detectives having all sorts of evidence and information about Prisma Reyes, there has still been no sign of her since she disappeared in 2019. Her family says before she went missing, she had a very bad day. A workplace dispute, an extended lunch, an hour of drinking, and then a violent altercation on the roads. Reyes was also seen acting distraught and sobbing at an ex-boyfriend's apartment complex. And then she vanished.
She left clues.
Baffling to me.
A video trail.
There's no way somebody did not see her.
She even left a little boy.
She was happy to be a mom and she was excited.
It was Prisma Reyes's only child, Dominic, who set a frantic search in motion. April 17th, 2019, the 6-year-old's babysitter alerting police in Mesquite, Texas. Prisma was late picking up her son.
This was a little out of the ordinary for Prisma.
Sergeant Dustin Barrett and his team on the case quickly, as that babysitter's call came just 2 hours after Prisma was overdue.
We were talking about the case. We were then notified that Dallas Police Department had located Prisma's
Thank you,
Jeep.
Phil.
I believe in my heart she's still with us. I got to have that faith.
Dan Fuchs is Prisma's stepfather and the only father she ever knew. He's candid about the day his daughter disappeared. It began with an argument at this used car lot in Dallas, where Prisma was a new employee.
The altercation that morning was apparently, as one lady felt, that the parking spot closest to the building was hers.
Lunch brought her to E-Bar Tex-Mex restaurant, where she met up with an ex-boyfriend. The pair leaves, but Detective Barrett says Prisma returned alone to drink.
Just talking with different patrons of the bar. She has a
Katie, yeah, I think I've done something on Katie Ferguson earlier too, a while back. I mean, and yes, Arctic did too, for sure. That's another interesting one too that needs really, really to get handled. It's a time for sure.
There's a bit of a disturbance there. I believe they cut her off from drinking. She got a little upset, spilled a drink, and then leaves.
Cameras catch Reyes driving her white Jeep, rolling over a curb during a turn. News Nation obtaining documents from what happens next, a road rage incident. At 5:05 p.m., 3 women call 911 reporting a suspect wearing a red polo in a white Jeep Cherokee pulled out a black handgun, cycled the slide, and pointed it their car. At that same street, cameras captured Prisma parking, blocking an alley at the ex-boyfriend's apartment complex. She runs in through the car gate and appears unsteady, waiting for the elevator.
She seems a little bit intoxicated. She's stumbling around. She has the look of somebody that has had a few drinks and doesn't have all of her mental faculties about her.
This is the last shot of Prisma after she moves to a higher floor and is spotted crying.
It's real grainy and real fuzzy, but the clothing and everything seems to match what she was wearing, so we believe that's the last video that we have of her.
Prisma is never seen leaving the building. All eyes immediately on that ex-boyfriend, one Prisma years ago dropped domestic violence charges against.
He wasn't there. We have him on video leaving several minutes before she arrives. We know where he was, where he went. We have him on video at several locations.
On her demeanor and everything else and how she wasn't intoxicated. It's more like she was drugged.
Prisma did not take her gun on her run into the building. She left it visible in the front seat in her illegally parked Jeep. That car belonging to a man who police say she was quasi-involved with. Detective Barrett confirming there's no evidence to suggest he was involved.
It kind of kills me inside because I don't know if he copes with it to where he doesn't ask for his mom and he just keeps it to himself.
Dominic's father and Prisma split before the boy's birth. Arturo Garza says he was out of state during the disappearance, and alibi police say is supported by current evidence. Garza just wants to support his son.
I don't try to talk about it much because I let him cope it in his way, and I think that's the best thing to do. Let him express his emotions whenever he's ready.
Dan Fuchs will never stop working to find the little girl he so proudly raised for himself and a growing boy who deserves answers.
For me to know what happened to her, but mostly for him. So that way, I could, if I'm on my deathbed, I could say, well, hey, Dominic, I've done everything I can do.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And
Yeah, I'll be looking into that one for sure. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Absolutely. Hold on here. What's this? Oh, Kansas State House, huh? Check this out, guys. One minute.
But we also have. So it's not just the Satanic Grotto entering the Capitol, but we also have counter protesters entering the Capitol and surrounding them.
A lot going on, right? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're already assumed to be one instead of giving the benefit of the doubt. So here we are. There are officers.
This is a bad video they made. Sorry, guys.
That we had originally been permitted for. I'm proud to be a citizen of Kansas. I'm proud to be here and do this.
He does not have permission to do prayers, but we're currently saying prayers inside the Capitol. Rob?
In the presence of all the dread demons
Rob,
of the pit.
They're currently saying the prayers inside the Capitol. He's saying the prayers. And now it's getting violent. We have a counter protester now attacking Michael as he's saying the prayers. It's getting a little violent. Oh, punches are thrown. Punches are thrown. We have Capitol Police intervening. This is on the first floor of the Capitol.
I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. I am not resisting.
We lost our mic. We're getting arrested now.
I am not resisting. I am not resisting.
Okay, so we are currently on the first floor of the Capitol. Michael is getting arrested. Punches were thrown. A counter protester also trying to take the prayers outside of his hand.
Okay, that was wild. I never heard nothing about that. Good Lord. I guess this leads into it too, or is part of it too. Hang on.
Your inaccessible crime. We would drive the nails deeper into your hands. We would press down the crown, thorns on your brow. We would bring the blood from dry wounds on your side. This we can and will do today by violating the quietude of your body. You purveyor of ample vices. You obstructor.
This is a mess. So I guess this happened a couple days ago at the Kansas State building. Something called the Satanic Grotto was going into the building to read their prayers per se. That's provide a black mass or something. Good God, you guys, what has shit happened now? Why is this stuff going on like in public places? This is insane. So this guy here is a leader. This bald dude is the leader of this thing called the Satanic Grotto, some kind of a cult, I'm guessing. Wow. There are so many other things. I'm not telling anybody that their religion is wrong. That's not my right. But you cannot force people to want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Just as much as if I were to start screaming Catholic prayers in a public building, that's not my right to do that because nobody else wants to hear that. You know what I'm saying? But it is absolutely feels right. Protected under the right of religious expression. That's wild. That's crazy, y'all. Crazy. Unreal. Oh, well. To each their own. That's all I say. I have my beliefs. Everybody has their own. Yeah, that was wild. That was crazy. Thank you guys for... I had no idea that even happened, but thanks for the info. Crazy stuff. But that's going to do it, guys, for today, at least for this show. I very possibly will be back in here a little later on today. I got some stuff to do around the house and everything. But thank you guys so much for joining us, Mama Bear, as well. Appreciate it, guys. Make sure before you leave that you do bump over there real quick and hit the like button on Mama Bear's side. If you haven't done it yet, please and thank you. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate... Well, the mods aren't here now. Oh, well, Tomboy's here. I appreciate the blue crew that was here. I appreciate you guys very much for joining us today. Besides that, guys, I hope you guys have a great day till I see you again soon. Much love to everybody. Don't forget to love yourselves and love each other. Don't change nothing. You guys are the beautiful people, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye-bye.
Typing at the speed of light, hunting down the shadows, bringing wrongs to right, digging deep in the data facts, sharp as a knife. With every single story, he's fighting for a life. A voice for the voiceless, he won't stay quiet. Daniel's got the fire igniting the fight. True crime revelations shining through the night. With every victim story, he pulls at the strings. A hero in the darkness, hear the truth he brings. Streaming loud and clear, cracking cases, open hearts filled with fear. These channels are beacon in a world gone wrong. He guides us through the chaos, a soldier so strong. The clicks and the lights, they follow his lead. With every new case, he plants a new seed. Sharing their stories, giving hope where it fades. Daniel's a warrior through the trials he waves. In a world of silence, he shouts out their names. Daniel's got the fire igniting the fight. True crime revelation shining through the night. With every victim story, he pulls at the strings. A hero in the darkness, hear the truth he brings. From the shadows you rise, are streaming loud and clear. True crime revelation shining through the night. With every victim story, he pulls at the strings. A hero in the darkness, hear the truth he brings. Daniel's got the fire igniting the fight. True crime revelation shining through the night. With everything